Welcome to Dawn Patrol. Today's episode, silos. Silos are for grain, not opinions. We mix them anyway and document the chaos. Let's go!
It gets me every time.
Oh boy.
How'd you find that guy? Like, did you make him? What's the deal with the set?
Yeah, it was an AI thing.
It was an AI thing.
So I'm sure everybody's aware. I'm echoing in my chamber over here. So I don't have much choice. I'll try to stay quiet. Other people have much more important things to say anyway. Yeah, do you want to open us up? Because we came off your stream. Originally, we're talking about this.
You said me. Yeah. I guess like something I've been thinking about for a while is, I think I said it in my stream yesterday, or whenever. It's like I feel like I'm struggling with this idea of like friendship and like almost like, what is it good for, and like how it's like whether it keeps me in like alignment to something like better, or whether it keeps me stuck into something that's like anti-life and decay, and it's like really hard to distinguish that difference. And I think like a conversation I had yesterday on Estuary with Neil and a few other wonderful TLCers, it was just like, it's like, like how does relationship like allow you to almost like experience the world more clear, and how does it open you up to like reality, and how does that help with like mental and physical health? And I think it's so intertwined, and so that's why I have this like need, or like the desperate desire probably, to like, I don't know, to have like the right and proper type of connection, because I think it's necessary for not just like, the world now and later, but then just like overall health for like every individual as a part of those communities. And so, yeah, I just been thinking about connection and friendship and sort of like what that means. So I don't know if you guys have any insight.
So interesting enough with this silo and the intro there, it's for grain. We store up the grain for a couple reasons. One, for food for later. So it's kind of a relationship to the future. And I think a proper relationship as well, right? You're storing up something to give to the future. You're sacrificing the now in a way to silo up the grain. But ultimately that grain needs to be distributed, right? So it needs to go out to the field for the next crop, or it needs to be food for the now that is now in the future. So I think the issue is, and the other thing too, is that it's a seed. So a silo is, I'm thinking maybe it's the ideas, right, that get stored away, but then they got to be pushed back out into the world. And one of the things that has been a theme in my mind listening to the content that I've seen over it's actually been the last 24 hours or so, is this idea that like you could know all this stuff, but unless you're enacting it in the world through relationship, it doesn't have any, that's when that physical becomes a treasure in heaven, is when you use it to even the attempt of properly relating it into the world is where the new thing happens. I believe, yeah, I think I'll leave it there for now, but that kind of seems to map nicely to the topic.
What's up, Bolson?
Morning. Did it help?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Having you here is always beneficial, though. Also,
But
You give it to me. I'll just be the.
I don't know how to give it to you. This is so horrible. Totally off topic. All right. Well, I'm not echoing. I'll just say this. So when I was originally thinking about this, when I saw your thumbnail, Megan, I think what it was for me was echo chambers and silos. Obviously it's deliberately used in a negative fashion, right? Because you're in your echo, or you stay in your silo. But a homeroom a while back where he showed a bunch of silos, if you remember, he had an AI thing, and I think that's true. And it almost makes me want to go back, because he was on it for a couple of days with that graphic, but because I feel bad that I'm not, nothing's jumping out at me so he said what he said, but I do remember. Well, I don't want to put words in his mouth. My whole thing is that obviously my tradition is going to have a silo. You know what I mean? This is where we are. This is what we believe, right? So with us coming into this space, we'll have beliefs. Now, for the personal stuff, right? Personal stuff, or the stuff that we're interacting with or discussing or having conversations about, it's not in silo. Now, it may be in a much larger silo, just to extend this metaphor, to where we're a Christian space and we want to bang these off with an underlying Christian element to it. So I feel like, that's fair. Now I'm not going into a debate sphere where I'm trying to test the theory of God necessarily. You know what I mean? I don't mind doing that, and I do that from time to time. Like when I have friends of mine that are already in that place mentally, they're here to talk about, like Scott, he's banging around the ideas from a theological standpoint. Like I don't need someone from the outside that doesn't believe in God, that's constantly being mean. And I feel like it's about intention. So I think I said opinions with respect for description. Like, even if you were an atheist or an agnostic and you were coming in, you were engaging us with our discussions, I wouldn't have a problem with that at all. But it's like a good thing. And so that's the thing that I probably have the biggest hard time with. I guess if I had another, though I wouldn't enjoy it on another, if I didn't do like the morning show, right? I would do it on another time, and I've done that in the past. But I'm also bored with it. I'm exhausted. Like it's not getting anywhere with certain people, and so it's like I don't want to do that. I just don't do it anymore. So like for me, have made that the situation, like when we're talking about Claire as an example, I won't ban. I don't have a problem with that. I just feel like it's better for the chat. It's better for people on the screen, not getting riled up by looking at them instead of being insults that are being lobbed at people that are on the screen. And that's my prerogative. You can come here and you do your thing. Now, if you want to give her a little more grace, I'm cool with that too. I'm not judging you for that. I think that is your right. I think that's great. Howard is held firm with that. As an example, he really doesn't do it a whole lot. I think the first time I've ever seen him do it was past week. So, so I just think that that's my stance on that. So, but my point is, we're discussing and we're throwing out opinions and ideas and stuff like that. I feel like, I don't know. It's like, guys, when you guys share an opinion with me, especially if it's pertaining to my tradition or anything like that, I feel like it's coming from whatever. It's coming from a point of respect. So like, we have this trust and respect built up because we've dialogued, and I'm okay with that, but I also trust that I could push back to what you're saying for the dialogue's sake, and move even further. So like maybe what you're saying is off, or maybe I need to be pushed further. You know what I mean? And I'm fine with that too. But it also has to do with respect and trust. So I don't have a problem with opinions. People can push me. Now, I've been in spaces before where I was so opinionated. When somebody brought something up, I made an opinion, and they checked out. Like, they never brought that subject up ever again because of how hostile.
About when I was visiting him, and I think it's come up a couple times, but like, I don't know. There's something about like proper growing that we are doing, because necessarily what we talk about right here is going to grow. Like we are like sowing the seeds for growing things. And how can we be in proper relationship with these ideas, the environment that we're in, our own self, our own like all of these things have to be put into like a proper context. And I think what relationship and proper relationship feels to me is like being able to get the feedback necessary to put these things in proper hierarchy or order or like meaning making. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like less about the process and more about like the meta process, like the meaning.
Proper growth is the gardener will prune.
What do you mean by that? Like, as in, like, there has to be a discernment of what to.
No. The gardener is God, and so our work is to grow. But we shouldn't try to hinder growth because we might go in the wrong place. Because the gardener will prune that off. He'll let it grow, he'll cut it back to a proper so that then growth will be appropriate. And even in growing into that wrong space, you're still going to get sunlight. It's still going to grow to root. This is the death part. You got to be willing to sacrifice. You got to be willing to let that die off if it doesn't work well.
Oh yeah, Scott, you just brought it back to what we were talking about before. Like that's the faith of it. It's like, it's almost like you have to be willing to allow the growth to happen, whether it's good or bad. And then the faith is that the environment or universe or God or whatever will know the proper things to allow to continue and not. Something like more like that, Scott.
Do I have the echo? Do I have the echo?
So, do I have the echo? I don't have the echo.
Nice.
So I missed. I jumped out a little bit there.
Oh, I was just saying.
You asked me a question.
It seems like you were bringing in this idea of like of faith, and like something that we were discussing before coming on stream was this idea of like, oh, until you make a decision to do something, to grow something, then the world can't give you the feedback of whether that's a proper thing to be growing in this space or not. It almost seems like, we're so worried about making sure we're growing. Well, I am making sure we're growing the right things, and we're not growing. And that's not growing is the only thing that's not living, right? Like that, like to say, oh, I'm not going to grow is like literally saying I'm going to die. Like, it's like, so interesting.
Yeah.
Does that
I think also
wonderful.
Real quick, I just want to say, when it comes to people that I consider acquaintances and things like this, I try to give them grace and patience. So even when they're coming at me with a different opinion, it's like maybe they have to work out. Maybe they have to see something else. Spend enough time with me to realize that's if I think they're wrong. Now, if it's coming from me to someone else, I think the difficulty becomes if they're defensive. And that can be tough. Because they're misunderstanding communicating, I feel. Because that's obviously not my heart. So that's tough. And I'm muting myself.
Go ahead, Olson. I see you coming over here. Give it.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just a little confused as to what exactly we're talking about. Like I'm trying to follow it, but it's pretty meta. So I'm kind of, you got to remember, I'm kind of slow. As I tell my son, I'm a dad to have no great intelligence. So yeah, gotta break things down a little bit for me.
So I guess I'll say kind of my idea is that it's real easy to fall into echo chambers as we silo off these important nuggets of life that we've learned. And we find people that share the belief structures and values that we are guarding and holding for the future to keep the metaphor alive here in our silos.
Okay, pause there for a sec.
Yep.
Clarify. Okay, so there's a concern for echo chamber, right? And then you were saying we've siloed off parts of our life.
Mm-hmm.
What parts have we siloed off?
Well, I would say we are doing it as a society. For me, is the way we've over-specialized medicine, just to use that as an example, right? The cardiologist only does the heart stuff. Kidney doctors only do the kidney stuff. Nerves is neurologist. But the idea is this whole thing is an interdependent relationship, right? That makes the entire thing. And so once we get these nuggets, we tend to go, okay, this is then, and then we hang out with other people to bring it to the personal, right? And we say, you know,
that was really controversial.
Yeah. So what's the antidote to that to prevent us from being in an echo chamber?
So, okay, so we're talking real life and not TLC, or we're talking, physical space and not TLC, or sorry.
Well, we could even do that with the ideas themselves within each one of us. We can silo off the idea in our own minds and think that that's the thing, right? But it only becomes a thing when, and I'm making the argument through right relationship. What good is an idea that I have in my own brain box of how to rightly, quote unquote, live or to see the world, even if it's not in relationship to others? And I would make the argument that to others in love. And one of the thoughts I've had over the last 24 hours is the 2 commandments to love, right? Love God, so love the idea, but you also have to love your neighbor. So it has to be shared. It almost has to be shared. Otherwise, the thing doesn't become real. And there's all kinds of different ways we could spread the metaphor, like cultivating the soil within your neighbor through building rapport, through building trust, all these things that we do in order to maintain and develop relationships with others.
Okay, so I hear 2 things, right? Like, one, you're afraid of being in an echo chamber, and then I guess three things. And then there's fear of siloing off certain compartments of your knowledge. I don't know. Question mark. We'll come back to that. And then um to prevent echo chambers, we need to make sure we are in relationship and loving well. And I feel like uh for the most part, what I know, we're doing that well as best we can. I'm not saying we're perfect. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like I'm missing something. Sorry.
It's okay. If you're missing something, somebody else is missing something too.
And it might also mean that like you're not as much in this like heady space as like at least I can say as I am.
Mhm.
And so like maybe you have a way to bring yourself down to earth, like having a family and a house and a kid, and like maybe that's, you know, I struggle sometimes to take these ideas and these conversations we have, and like I think this is what Scott talks about. It's like, oh, I'm trying to implement it in my real life, and like I think that's what I am pointing to is like how do we make this like matter, like what I've been talking about in like my friendships and like my struggles is that I'll like bring up ideas because I'm using words that are necessarily limited and fallen in and of themselves if they're not connected and paying attention and relating it to something bigger, right? Like the only way I can express myself is through these words that are not the thing. Like I'm never going to be, it's never going to be the thing. And what I struggle with is then they hear me siloing the ideas off, and then it's lost, and then I can't find like the grounding and then the connect like and so I feel like there's a lack of being able to talk about these ideas properly without again getting into the, you know, what are we talking about? Like I think it's a fair thing to say also. And it's like, what are we talking about? It's like really it's nothing. I don't think we're supposed to be talking about anything specific, but it's the fact that when we talk about it, it gets cut off. It's like you see a beautiful flower and then you cut it off because you want to be like, look, I found a flower. I'm like, well, you just killed the flower. Like what
It was
I
gonna
want
die
to do is
anyways.
talk about it and point to it and keep it alive. Like that's I don't know
But
if
I
any of
mean, flowers are gonna die anyways. You might as well bring them in and enjoy them inside the house.
sure.
That's a great example of how you're grounded, right? And the thought that came to my mind then, Megan, was the joy that then gets shared with the other person because you gave it, right? And so that's where this back and forthness of the infinite and the physical and that's where it's got to be this constant. That's why the seed is so important, because the seed is a representation of that thing.
Mhm.
It's everything. How Pajot talks about potential, right? It's the infiniteness wrapped up in a package, which is the ideas that we get to glean. But the only way that it really becomes real is if that image within us dies through us trying to implement it into the world. And sometimes we hold on to these things because we're afraid they're going to die, or we're going to die because if we share it, we're going to be seen as weirdos or out of the fold. And so we hold on to it ourselves. And maybe even in a right attempt to build treasures in heaven, because that's kind of close to it. But until it's like shared, and the word that came to my mind was embodied. And it's weird using embodied because in the act of sharing it in a right relationship, it's almost disembodied
Right.
because it's going through two people and then becoming another new thing. I mean, the picture in my mind is really beautiful. But what you said, Olson, is, I think, a great example of where your heart is, right?
Killing stuff.
Letting it die.
Well, I'm about to say exactly like that was just another example of like, I'm sitting here saying like, oh, I don't want to kill it because then I'm like killing it and that's bad or whatever. And that's me siloing myself off to like a potential of something new too. And so it's like, again, it's like nothing in and of itself is the proper way. And it's just like, that's why we have these conversations, I think, is because then I can remember to stay in the present with the flowers that are going to die in 3 days on my counter. Like, I don't know. There's like something about that like opening of potential that I think is what connection and friendship and I don't know. I think that's what this is supposed to be.
It seems weird to me that you're often very focused on being present, but then you often communicate that you don't feel like you are present. And I that's always been an interesting thing because it's just like I feel like you spend a lot of time thinking about being present, that I find it hard that you aren't actually present in more of your life than maybe you think you are. And there's part of our life where sometimes the act of like being physically aware of the present isn't actually what's needed, right? Like if like sometimes we need to get into flow states. Sometimes we need to get into like frustration states to work through stuff. Sometimes we just sleep. So yeah, I feel like you're present to yourself a lot more than you give your self credit for. And then also presence is maybe overrated.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chat on there? I don't get a picture. All I get is a swirly line.
What do you mean you only get a swirly line?
Like like when something's loading, like a picture. That's what I get. I get a
Oh, a buffering cyclone.
line. Yeah.
I call it the buffer cyclone.
There you go. I like to call it a meteor chasing its tail.
Well, there's peanut butter and shoes. Sometimes you even have curtains over the windows, and once in a while you just gotta kind of go and check out where the counter is at, and then you gotta kind of like spray it down, and then because you have to like peel oranges and then
Testing.
kind of.
I figured it out.
Eat some cake once in a while, and those kinds of things are kind of important, especially if you're trying to do.
Megan, do you have headphones?
And yeah, I mean it's exactly like that.
So it was me.
The whole time.
That's why she didn't hear the echo.
I was right.
I was gonna give somebody a hard time. Like, oh, of course. We've been doing this for so long, crazy. But I think, didn't you get a new computer, Megan, recently?
I did, and they're not attached to my headphones, so that's what
There's
it
still
was.
echo.
There's still a little bit of echo.
Chad. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so we're good. We'll just have to mute Megan from time to time so that others can talk. So, yeah, I was thinking to myself, I guess, Chad, do you want to talk? Because you just jumped on. Do you have any ideas about this echo? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I just laid them all out, but you guys just cut me off. You don't want to get ideas.
I'm sorry, man. This echo thing was really distracting, bro. Yeah, come on, take some constructive criticism.
Why?
That's what
Why?
f- do.
Good question.
That's
I don't know.
You were talking about peanut butter.
I was just talking about the way that there's sometimes have to fold up blankets after you do the laundry, and then sometimes there's actually the door is hanging open. You're like, well, why is the airplane with the peanut butter? And I don't understand why that's happening. But it's easily explainable if you're trying to drive a car inside of a salt shaker.
You just use facts and logic.
Yeah, I know.
I just thought about the kid playing baseball in the outfield chasing the butterfly is the analogy I have. It kind of maps to the arena too.
So you see, this whole if we're completely outside of the echo chamber, it's just nonsensical. Yeah.
Say more.
Go on. Yeah.
Well, there's kind of like the train is you roll that into a dough and make biscuits, and then eventually you just have kind of like gravy that's shits its own pants, and then basically it's like Dawn soap is like no way to basically pay your taxes. You see what I'm getting at?
I do
do.
like some poop pants gravy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that this is kind of the cycle of the TLC. Like, we get into these ideas, we get real thinky talky, and then the question comes up about what are we doing? Right? This is kind of it's the cycle. But I also think it's the cycle to how we learn to incorporate the new or the outsider or the foreigner is kind of the same way.
Yeah, the question is often asked by basically people who are discontented. That's all. They know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. It's not enough because for some reason you think that there's going to be something or should be something more out of this, basically. And then so this is how you go on to fire people like Paul Van Nickelay and stuff because he isn't leading and it isn't going where I should, and then because it's just discontentedness. So go fly a sheep's paw.
Wait, we're firing Paul Vanderklay?
That already happened.
Old argument. That was like an old argument. I
We-
think Jacob had
Did
that
we hire him?
years ago.
We're not
That
going
wasn't
over it.
me.
Just ignore what I said.
We're paying
I-
him?
I guess what I
my love.
wonder, Chad, I thought like it was onto something there. Like there was something, and I don't know that I really grasped it. I think what I was thinking in my head was, like there are silos that I do have that if it and I'm okay with people entering those quote unquote silos, and let's just say space instead of using this metaphor. Like so, there's a group that I'm around, and I enjoy the group, and we already know what we think and how we feel, but we know that there's a core at the center that we all kind of do trust in. And like, as an example, we use in Jesus. So like, okay, we all do trust in this. We don't exactly know how we connect to it, how we're identifying it. We may have different theology, different processes on it, and we can be okay in that particular space. Going out of that space, it's going to get tested. It's kind of like stress testing. So like if I'm not solid in what I believe, if I'm not grounded when I enter those spaces, I'll tend to get combative, because now I'm like defending my space or my belief structure, how I see things, right? It becomes more direct. Now how I defend it, if I'm lashing out at the person, that's probably not good, right? So then it kind of makes you should wonder, if I'm lashing out, how
Unless you're good
grounded
at it.
actually, well, well, that's where the debate sphere ends up, right? Like,
I mean, good
but
at
if I'm
lashing.
well, that's what I know. You weren't going to like. I was going to next then, because I was going to say I feel like if I'm lashing out in those spaces, then I'm not really that firm in where I stand. You know, because it's a defense mechanism for me when I get defensive like that. You know, and it's something I'd have to look at. Like, okay, wait a minute. And I was worried about that coming to the TC. My initial thing was, how strong is my faith in my, you know, because I do think I don't have it all right. You know, I do believe that, but could I be talked out of some of my theology? Like, would that even conceivable? Like, you know, and I was like, you know, it took me a while to mentally process this. And I realized, no, actually, I am pretty good where I'm at. But if I'm being defensive and I'm, you know, kind of, I don't know, you know, doing like traditional debate topics where I'm kind of, you know, like that's not good either. But we do get like what happened with Luke and I when we're talking with Scott. You know, you can slip into those places. You know, like I'll slip into them momentarily, but I don't think that's my core heart. That's not my core heart to Scott, not to have me and Luke talking to each other. You know what I mean? But we were trying to get clarity. So we were trying to do a little bit of both, but we're doing it in a balanced way. And you know what I mean? So that's, yeah. What do you think?
And I think that's a great example of growing, right? You can't be you can be scared, and you probably should have reverence to try to grow in the right direction. But if that causes you to bury your treasure in the backyard and not grow your talent, that's the wrong move. So we should be trying to grow. And then if the gardener wants to chop that off, he's going to, and then we got to be okay with it. And that's not to say that it's not going to leave a scar and you're going to bleed a little bit, right? You know, but the gardener has the way to prune us in the right spot. Like there's a way to prune things to where you prune it back to the right bud to get that bud to grow in the direction that you want it to, up instead of down, right? And he has the knowledge to do that in a very right way. Our job is to simply grow, or to use Megan's language, just we're just supposed to do the thing. But you have to participate. You have to be in it. Right. And I think that story was beautiful because, you know, that's what you were like, something came, the Lord spoke to you in a little bit of a way, and okay. And what's interesting is when he gives me the opportunity to prune myself, right? He gives me the opportunity to say, okay, this is something I want you to let go of. And then that's when like things really kind of go into a next level.
Yeah, that's really comfortable too. But I'm being very sarcastic. That's the worst. It can be the hardest.
This kind of reminds me. Well, first of all, how do I sound? Okay.
Good.
It's all right.
Am I am I echoing? Are other people echoing?
No one's
did
echoing.
It work?
It worked.
Okay, my fault. I'll take it. That's fine. You were right, Olsen. I was wrong. Although I didn't say I was. It wasn't me. I just didn't know. Anyways, it goes back to kind of what Chad and I were talking about last night. For me, is this like self-importance, and like I don't know. There's something about like pointing to it and thinking we have to point to it and thinking we're the ones who have to be the ones to point to it. And then thinking that when you have pointed to it, that's just as good as doing it. And it's, I don't know. I feel like it all starts with that, like that self-centered, self-importance need to feel like, I don't know. I feel like in my friendships, like half of it, this is what was like, I was struggling with, like half of it was like them trying to tell me that I was important. And I was like, I don't need your help thinking that I'm the most important thing in the room. That's my struggle. Like that's like that's what's getting me into this loop in the first place. And so I think that's what I mean by like echo chambering. It's like that reinforcing of self-importance. And it's like, I don't think that's actually helpful for like real doing
You're
and
asleep to
being
it.
and all the things.
Yeah,
What'd you
because
say, Chad?
you might be completely asleep to this
Mm-hmm.
self-importance. It might just be practically playing out that way. You don't think that that's the case, but
Well, I think that's why it triggers me, is because I'm like hearing it and I'm like, no, don't tell me that. Like, no, it's like, no, I don't need more of this. This is what I like. And then people think, oh, she's just trying to be humble. And I'm like, no, no, actually, no, I'm not being humble. That's why I need you to stop. I need you to stop hyping me up right now. Something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
no.
I think that's a big difference between masculine and feminine space.
Yeah.
Because in masculine space, like we like to tease each other, and we're like, oh, you're not really that great, remind each other, and we'll point out good, positive stuff, like Brett's beard, like obviously good and positive, and Chad's ridiculous good looks, but
This is
Yeah.
how I know you're full of shit. This is literally how I know you're full of shit. You can't say like, Brett's great beard. It's not great. Chad doesn't have good looks. And you're not fucking stupid. So quit acting like it.
but that's what I'm
Boys
talking
have a
about.
penis and girls have a vagina.
Exactly.
What?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly
Earmuffs.
what I'm talking about.
Now this is a great point. I feel like because like if somebody didn't know Olsen, right, and they didn't know that he likes doing jokes, and even if they're goofy or maybe you didn't pick up on it, whatever, they're like cutesy jokes, right? So like somebody entered this space, never met Olsen before, and Olsen said something like that. Yeah, the first thing to think of is he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's like his thing, you know what I mean? Like he plays like he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's kind of like his comic routine in a way, like Mark Tbilisi. I miss him this morning. I haven't seen him.
Daddy's stupid.
But also listen to the stupidity, because there's
Daddy's
He
a lot of
also
stupid.
knows-
He knows
but-
economics.
But Chad,
He's dumb.
Chad, he knows we know that he's not. I mean, really.
Talking about self-importance. I mean, seriously.
Well,
I did my
can
best. I
Self-important.
did my best.
Can I bring it back to the gender thing as I do?
Yeah. Please.
So I feel like I agree with that. I think that's like what the space of like masculine, feminine like used to be. But this is why I think I struggle, is that I think I've been invited through society and conditioning into this masculine space. And I'm like, I think we talked about it a while ago on one of Scott's streams, and like they was talking about pride and like what do women do with this like they're not used to dealing with this pride. And I think it's like that same thing where it's like I'm not used to feeling this importance and this power, and like I almost think like biologically I am not in tuned to how to deal with that. And so I think that's why I'm like, oh, I need this feedback. And then Luke will comment, oh, you want a masculine friendship. And I'm like, well, of course I do. Like, of course I want a masculine, because like I've been told to be in this masculine space. And so I need the feedback of this masculine space. And so like, I think it is a gender issue, but I think it's like now it's an everybody issue. And we are just women are like less available. I don't know. We don't know how to deal with this space.
So it's
Like,
like
we're not, like, equipped for it.
cataclysmic or something.
Sure. Yeah. That sounds cool.
Like I made this shit up. But like no, it's like this.
I think you're right.
cataclysm. Yeah. I don't really know what I said. Actually, sorry.
And I think we're still told that we're supposed to be in women, like female relationships. Like that's why I'm saying like my female friends are not doing anything wrong by like speaking to me in this way and acting in this way. But like, it's not conducive to the environment that we're in. And so it's like the way we're conditioned to like be, and then when the way we're conditioned to act, like don't seem to, I don't know, they don't seem to actually bear the fruit of which I think is actually like proper for the world. That's why it goes back to like, which part of this is wrong? And it's the interaction of the two. It's not necessarily the seed is wrong or the environment is wrong. It's the interaction of that for me feels like I'm just pointing to the fact that this feels wrong. Do I know the solution to it? Heck no. But it feels like the way that these are procreating feels like they're making something that's not making the world a better place.
Don't you think it matters who it's coming to, though? Like, if it's not just a random person, it's somebody that's really close to you, and they're
What do you
telling
mean
you
by
something.
"don't you think"? Is that
Well, I'm
phrase,
asking.
your catchphrase drives me nuts.
Do you think?
That's a good question.
Do you think
That's a
that
question.
it makes more? Okay, I see what you're saying, Chad. That's a good point. Now, see, that's a great example. Like somebody that I care about is saying something to me. Chad, I know, doesn't pull punches, right? So there may be something to it. Let me look at it and do some, and actually test where I'm at. And that's a healthy way to do it. Now, if it was somebody like Clark or somebody that is adversarially, deliberately toxic and does lob insults on purpose for the sake of blah, 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 I would take it totally different. I probably wouldn't even evaluate it and do any kind of self-check. So if like when Megan was saying, like, somebody, a girlfriend talk, I think I was hearing it right. If somebody was saying something or whatever, it's like, do I disregard it or do I take, and this is something I might have to chew on. Maybe they have some point, like maybe it's coming from a place of love. It's from a good heart. Maybe they seeing something I don't see, the apple on my head that I can't see, that's about to get shot right off with an arrow,
Well, this particular apple, okay, it's more about, it's kind of when you hear people say right or like or whatever, they have their, I can't remember what we were calling them. There was a word that we were calling them for a while there. They're
Verbal tics.
There's another word. And then we also said, like, instead of announcing our pronouns, we would announce our whatever this is. It's like I can't remember what it is, but mine is, I can't remember what mine is. I have some of these. Anyways, the "don't you think" one drives me insane, especially once I hear it, because it's like what I feel like it's saying is like, this is what you think. This is what you think, and then I have to automatically, then I'm invited to argue with your assertion of what I think, because you said, "Don't you think that apples have brown pizza stains on them or something?" And I'm like, "No, I never thought that." So anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track here.
This is the part where Olson says, "Okay, I gotta go."
Yeah, I gotta go.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I was working. I guess I do. Yeah, my trigger is ones where people like say right and then keep going, or like,
That's me.
what's another one?
We're all gonna be so insecure after this.
Yeah, but let me ask you something. Sometimes that is just either the people they grew up around, or the environment where the dialogue was built on that, and it's not any ill intention. It's not like, I'll give you an example. Hawaii, it was the weirdest and most annoying place to go, in a sense, because all the locals are like, the weather is good outside, yeah. And I'm like, my brother looks at me in the elevator. He's like, well, did he just answer his own question? And I'm like, yeah, I think he did. The weather is good out there, yeah. I'm like, but
That just
honestly,
reminded me of Canadians and A.
yeah, exactly. So I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes there isn't somebody like secretly trying to take over your mind. You know, there isn't. You know what I mean? Like they're not trying to force convince you. But I think Scott had mentioned something that made me think of, I don't know, it was a book or something, but it reminded me of How to Win Friends and Influence People, the Dale Carnegie book back in the day. And it really was a social manipulation tool. Like it was, the idea was to get more out of people by doing these good things, and just kind of, it's kind of like forcing somebody to do the right thing, interacting with people hospitably. And guess what? It might work out to your advantage, you know, and in some cases, you know, you're kind of playing, oh, I'm so sorry, I had no idea, acting humble about it, but really there's a goal in mind of getting away with it, or whatever the, you know, example that they were using in the book. So like part of me is like, there's that, and then there's somebody like deliberately trying to manipulate, you know, the conversation, you know, and that's not, at least I don't feel like that's how I am when I'm engaging you guys, as an example. I am trying to, like, in my conversation, as I'm talking, I may say right in the conversation, like kind of asking the question, but still moving to the next idea, because I want you to track how my brain is thinking, you know, kind of track the thought process. But if you're receiving it as, wait a minute, stop. You just said right, and I don't agree with that. I'm not there yet. Then okay, that's a totally different thing. At that point, I'm like, okay, yeah. You know, I need to slow down. You need to grasp the concept first before we move forward.
Well, I think I want a comment on this, if that's okay, because I think what I'm hearing and what's being pointed to is almost this like when someone talks in this way, it's almost like they're trying to like assert their opinion and ask in a way that is formed within their opinion, and therefore trying to get their opinion to be validated or invalidated. That's kind of like how it seems to me how like conversation like works. I could be very wrong with this. And so I think that's going back to this whole personal thing. I almost feel like it doesn't really matter how much they know you. It's more about what they think they know about you that ends up being the way in which they interact with you and your ideas and their ideas of you. And so I think what I think about like with friendship and how like connection is supposed to work is like I would rather talk about these things with people who are just open to not being drawn down by any particular silo, whether they know me or not. Because I don't know, I feel like that's what is opening up life, is that like sort of like potential. And so I don't know, I kind of got a little bit messy at the end, but like something like that, like I think that's what we're pointing to, but I could be wrong. That's what I heard from Chad though.
Like earlier, you mean?
Early, so that's what like brought it up for me, is like it's almost like you're saying like, oh, are you like following me, are you tracking? It's like, are you going to agree with my idea of the world and how you are seen in this world? It's like it's like as direct as that. And I don't think we realize that's what that's the question we're answering, is like we're reinforcing this idea of the other person that the other person has towards us or towards the world. And that's why asking these questions of like, are you, you know, do you understand is one thing, but to say like, is this right? Like, does this like, I don't think we know what we're asking when we ask that question. And I don't think we know what we're doing when we're answering that question. And I think it's a subconscious creation of the world.
Yeah, there was I'm gonna get going, but there was a person in the corner that was, they would go along and they would have long streams of thoughts, and then they would string them together. They would have arguments and they would string them together with right, am I right? And then they'd keep going. And it took me a while to kind of get through that, like work through that, because I then I recognized it as like a verbal thing, and I was like, okay. In my head, I was like, no, wait, I don't agree with this. Don't go on with the argument. But yeah, it took me a while to kind of like work through that and be like, hey, you know what? Like, they're not personally asking you, Olson, if they're trying to acquiesce your agreement to that. And so I had to. That was my own little Piccadilly I had to work through. So thank you guys.
You know, that's a good point.
Feels like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Chad.
Sorry.
You're good.
Is it my turn? Or is it Al's turn? Oh, okay. What I was thinking on this was what it feels like when this sort of thing happens. It feels like footwork, or like getting your footing right or something. So, Brett, when you do the "don't you think" thing, to me it feels like sticking your foot in the door so the door doesn't close. So you're getting your spot in the conversation or something, and then, or the right or something, or the whatever the thing is. It's kind of like if you're rock climbing or something, it's getting your foot right so that you can step up. You know, it's just like it's not. Yeah, so it's more for themselves rather than somebody else or whatever. And maybe mine is or whatever. Maybe that's one of mine. Holy shit. But the thing about it is that what I'm desiring is that you are contending with your own thoughts more intimately before something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's kind of like it, especially if there's like moments or something, and then it's like, don't you think? And it's like, I know that you're not being manipulative or something. It's just like a bad habit or something. It's like spittle or something when you're talking. It's like, stop, don't you thinking on my face, dude. You know, something like that. And I probably should get out of here, honestly.
Yeah, that's how
I think he's pointing to something really important, because I think we've forgotten maybe that when we talk and when we are conversing, we are like taking someone's attention. We are asking them to go on a journey with us. And like, it is that big and dramatic. Like, we're asking them to turn, like if I'm going to ask you to point at something, I'm asking you to turn away from everything else. And I think it's just very important to realize that that's what we're doing when we're speaking. And because we can just speak really easily, and we're all very intellectual people, like, it's very easy to just sort of go off on like a trail of thought. And I think this is why Claire is so hard for me, because she'll go on one path and another path and another path, and I'm following her, and she's taking me with her. And then I don't know, I guess I am, because I'm speaking. I get pissed off when I'm like, we are so far from the beginning of this journey, and like all of a sudden you just stop, and there's like, and what do we get to? Like, where do we stop? Nowhere. And I have to then backtrack. Like that feels irresponsible. That doesn't feel like friendship or love there. And I think it's something to remember.
I want to say something, but I want to hear also what Al has to say on this too, because he hasn't got a chance. Okay. So what's interesting, like, let's use these two totally different people. One example would be Claire. Other example would be like Alex Luna. So Alex historically has always communicated difficultly, meaning like he goes very around the mountain to get to his place. But I do know, over time and talking with him and listening to him, that he does have a valid, beautiful point that he's trying to convey when he gets there. You know, so he brings me on a journey. I don't like the way I wouldn't have taken this many right turns and left turns to get to the point to the place. But if I can track him and chill now, so that's good faith, right? Obviously in the other situation, it isn't a good faith. And so there is a fundamental difference too. And being in this space, whether it's me needing to get a good foothold in my conversation, great analogy, right? Because it is probably more for me than it is for you. However, like with Alex, I would give him grace and try to just let him run his this long thing out, even though there's going to be so many points that I need to get off and try to focus on, so it's like I'm trying to remember the original point and where we started. But he fostered all these beautiful ideas throughout this entire right turn, left turn, right turn, left turn, and then ended up at the point which was connected to the original idea. But my brain is just thinking of all these other ideas, And so like, that's a different thing. Like I can give Alex grace in that, to let him take his time, let him get it out, let him finish his complete thought, because that's how his brain works. It has to completely be finished before he can step out, but we, like in like our morning group, right? We have pretty good dialogue. I mean, I probably talk more than anybody, but you give me an opportunity to hang myself. But then your feedback is with some grace, and like you give me that space to do those things. So like there is a dynamic that takes place that's different with other people. And so like just having grace with different people and their defects and the way that they have to communicate, it's like, okay, I have to give grace with the Hawaiian guy answering his own questions, it's just his culture, but that's an easy one, right?
Yeah. I'll just say one thing before Al speaks, if that's okay, Al. I want to make a point, because I feel like sometimes people get very like butthurt about people bringing up like certain like names or just names in general. And I want to at least speak for myself. Like when I speak about people's names, I'm using them as a model of an archetype. And the only reason why I can see their faults is because I have them too. And so I just want people to realize that when we're talking about people, I think we're not talking about the people in general. We're talking about the archetypes that all of us possess. And so I just want to make that caveat like right away. But then I also want to say, like, when I, again, nothing against Alex or Claire, but I almost think for me, they sort of bring a very similar archetype when it comes to this sort of idea of like bringing us on a journey. Yes, I think when Claire is walking me down a path, I'm not looking at the trees or the grass. I have no idea what's around me. And so it's very like aggressive. We're on this path together. Take my hand, pull me. Whereas like Alex, I feel like we're able to sort of like look at the trees together, and I still don't really know exactly where we're going. But I think ultimately what comes to mind for me is like, how do I become someone loving for these people when I say where we're going might not actually be relevant to where you want to be going, or like how we're going might not actually be relevant to like a bigger picture. And so it's like, at what point do you say, yes, he's speaking in good faith? No, she's not speaking in good faith. But then also neither of those things mattering, and saying, if truth is the ultimate reason why we're speaking, let's bring it back to like a better, more efficient way of getting down this path. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, Al, I would love to hear your thoughts, because I know there's got to be a gazillion good ones.
The only actual thought was like, I'm surprised you didn't use me as an example, because I've spoken. Oh, I'm sorry. The only surprise thought that came up is I'm surprised you didn't use me as an example, because I've been speaking to some people within the circle, and right, I'm completely opaque, right, in some of the things that I say, right, right. So, but what I wanted to share with y'all is what you guys are circling. So I wrote an essay this morning about interpretation. Okay, I don't know if B, you saw, I put a little a word study on friendship in one of your And so I love doing these deep dives, what I call modern philology on words. So if I can share with you guys a couple of funny little syncretic insights, okay? So my biggest problem with the Odyssey movie right now is not what you'd think. It's actually that they're not actually even talking about the story. The Homer's Odyssey was foundational to our very identity as to who we are. And so what I used in my essay is I revolved around one word, polytropos in Greek. And what I was talking about is back then, poly meaning many and tropos meaning turns, but it's more like facets. I would translate as many facets. Okay, so this is the insight that I had the hardest time. Yeah, I'm on Substack. It's called The Tragedy of Trauma.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now for him.
Yeah. So long story short,
Alan.
this is the same problem that Buddhists have, that the Vedantins, the Hindus, identity. Okay, and I'll quote a recent book. It's called The Psychology of Totalitarianism by Matthias Desmans. And he's building on Hannah Arendt and B.J. Hahn, the modern philosopher, this idea of what is identity. So, and we were talking about this in chat. So just to give this a highlight, identity, in this case, we're going to define it as the stories other people tell that you're living. Okay, so you're not, like Chad was talking about, not agentic, right? You're not an agent in this story. Whereas myth or mythos is you are the story. You are the person involved in the telling. So long story short, polytropos is identity. It's Jung's individuation. It's the Buddhist. What is the ego? What is the self? Your self doesn't exist, right? Who was it? Heraclitus, the Greek, said no two men can cross the same river because you're not the same person and you're not, and it's not the same river, right? So we got to remember that. And so I guess as a takeaway, I would say friendship is co-creation. Do you follow me? I talk about this a lot, right? Martin Buber says the I and the thou, but we miss this. It usually gets boiled down to W.E.B. Du Bois' idea that if you treat someone as less than human, it denatures your humanity and theirs. I go one step further and say, yeah, that's harmful, right? But the real problem is you can never become your true self if you're not engaging with another authentic being. So if you're pretending and they're pretending, you're done. If you're pretending and they're trying to be authentic, you're done, right? So what I want to say is I don't believe it's just our inauthenticness. You guys are circling something I love. Just this morning, I thought of this idea. Linguistic relativity is this idea that language shapes our very selves, right? The language we use helps us understand the environment, helps us understand objects, helps us understand ourselves. And so I argue, no one's really talking about this. If we're flattening our language, dumbing it down to the point where we don't have the words to express ourselves, obviously we're going to lose our very selves, our very humanity. And so I think you guys are circling this very thing. The idea of friendship is individuation to Jung, but it is, what did you guys call it? In Greek, there's a word starts with an M, matrekos. It's to become the best possible version of yourself. In Sanskrit, we would say a bodhisattva. You know, I get what I mean? Bodhi just means great or wise, and sattva is just a great being, a great human. You get what I mean? So that's my full takeaway. I love that pro-felicity, because here's the argument. That pro-felicity is that we are all living a fake persona. None of us are actually what we think we are, and we're trying to co-create to fake it till we make it. So how's that? I'll shut up now. I'm sorry. I try to be so condensed, and I'm not. I'm sorry.
You're doing good, buddy. The one I posted in the chat was the adversary with no stakes.
That's something recently that I stole from B. Yeah, I wrote that based on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I put that there that we
the essay this morning yet.
Yeah,
I don't think on polytropos. I'm still fighting through it, right? Because
but isn't it weird though, like how other people perceive you? I mean, I find that element, I can't necessarily get completely hung up on it. Right?
Oh, that's actually one other thing. If I could share quickly, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Biggest thing. The biggest thing I learned from Jung, he says that once you learn about psychology, you can't help but psychologizing everyone. But here's the real truth: is no one thinks about you as much as you do yourself. Everyone's all trapped in their own head. But the Greek truth of know thyself was because none of us know ourselves. So the most interesting truth is everyone is so obsessed with their own little world. They're not really concerned about yours. So first of all, that makes it a lot easier. But the real truth is no one really knows themselves. So we're all just stumbling in the dark. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And you
Yeah,
and you
and-
learn that through relationship. Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, I was going to say, and we're all telling ourselves a story of ourselves. And so when we perceive other people, like I was saying before, we want that story to match our story. So, like, I want Scott to be the version of him that matches the story that I have of myself. And that's
And
where
the
I
story
feel
of
like,
him that you have. Yep.
exactly. And so it's like, why are we coming together to support each other's delusions? That's not friendship for me.
Exactly.
That's not it.
Exactement. C'est vrai. That's I argue what Baudrillard was getting at is that we were all there's this affected psychology that we kind of can't remember what they call it, but I call it the derision to the mean, right? Where we all dumb ourselves down to try to fit in, right? Kind of the argument that the neurodivergent are talking about that they've been masking for so long. I argue we're all masking. And we've hit that point where I don't think Baudrillard realized that we would hit a point where we are living the simulacra. None of us are truly who we could be or what we think we are or what other people think they are. Because the truth is you have to admit you're none of those. You get what I mean? Anyway, and I'll stop saying sorry. That's such my Canadian thing.
He's not saying sorry. He's saying sorry. So spell it right.
Yeah, my accent. No. But yeah.
I feel like I want to say something, but I don't know. I don't. So in what you said, Brett, about the differences between, say, Claire and Alex, and then Al, you put yourself into that as well. I'd like to kind of paint a picture of kind of what came to mind with the descriptions of those different things. So I kind of saw Alex as, and you can think of it as we're all around a mountain, right? And so Alex likes to take the long, slow, even rise up to the top of the mountain. He kind of spirals up the thing. I would say me and Brett we just want to kind of get straight to the top. And so we'll hit an obstacle, take a quick turn, but we're going as straight up this sheer cliff as we can go. And then somebody like Claire, I at least have come to the place where she's taken me off the mountain. She's taken me away from what we're trying to get to the top of the summit, the seed. And then for you, Al, I see you, and it's pretty beautiful that this came because I wanted to say this before you spoke. And then when you spoke, this is how I see you. I see you taking the path and looking at every flower in every little nook and cranny and seeing the beauty in all of it. Like you're exploring all the little places as we're climbing up the mountain. So, and you know, for me, that's frustrating because I'm like, but I want to go to the mountain. Let me get to your point. I don't want to hear about all because I think it comes with a respect that you have from all this beauty that you found, and you want to give credit to that. That's why you mention all the people and stuff. But for me, that's a bit of a distraction because it you know, now I'm looking over here at the beautiful flower and I've lost the path. Right, because we've kind of gone a little butterfly in the outfield, which you know, but you know what I'm saying. But again, I have faith that you're taking me up the mountain so I can give grace more easily. Now, to your point, Megan, how much do we give grace to the idea that time and time and time and time again, that grace has taken us off the mountain? And that we're somewhere else. I
wonder.
Look, we glean from all these different perspectives, and this is where the relationship that I've been pounding the drum on today comes so much in handy, is because we all are able to grow through the different perspectives that we're all bringing into the conversation as we attempt to ascend the mountain.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's also important too, like as we're vulnerable with each other, like, are you going to come behind me and take a hammer to the hole that I created? You know, with Al, he's a great example. I think to me, the envisionment I had of going up this mountain, I will come over and hammer and anchor right where your foot was and do a tie off, like it's kind of like he's shearing up your footing with where you're at, based off of what he's learned and the things that he's connected dots to. He kind of endorses it, but he also has his pushback. He doesn't go around putting anchors every time you put your foot down on the mountain. Like, I have an appreciation for the way that he goes up the mountain with me, even if he isn't wanting to go the same direction as me necessarily, or he's on a different part of the mountain or whatever. But that's just how I feel about the way that he, engages stuff. But when somebody is literally, like you said, taking me off the mountain, like literally trying to smash whatever foothold I have, because you think it's a soft foot. Yeah, it's soft foot. I can smash that footing right there, that little ledge he's got. That I can totally destroy that.
That's so true.
Megan, you were going to say something, I think.
I mean,
can I just share it?
But nothing.
Well, I just want to share. First, I want to apologize. I didn't know.
Don't, man.
No, this is a true apology. This is actually an apology.
Beauty. Okay.
No, I actually was kind of dishonest. So there was a member of the group that asked why she couldn't find my YouTube, and I'll have to be honest. I was experimenting with this hide your channel from user because. You know how I am. I'm the type of person that pushes back, even, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I was honest when I said that I wasn't actually interested in people contacting. I actually am interested in people contacting me and develop. It's just certain people that kind of show that they're not operating in good faith, or, you know what I mean? Those are the sort of people that I just know that I can't, engage with. Funny enough, though, a friend of mine, I didn't even really pay attention to it. A friend of mine noticed on my Substack that this very person found me. And so they started to engage with me in that same sort of way that they usually engage, really heavy, intense push. And so I just gave her back what I call my Pyrrhonistic view, but it's Socratic, and just asked them simple questions. And the thing that shut them up completely was, have you engaged with your own belief of what the best contrary argument is to your own, right? I asked this person, and they said they're absolutely certain they have the answer for everyone. That's why they're pushing so hard. So I just said, if you're certain about the answers that you have you not engaged with, help me here. Well, what's the word I'm looking for? Like your opposite, you know what I mean? Like, have you looked at
the opposite?
Yeah. And I got dead silence. Like, I asked a couple times and then dead silence, right? So I just want to be honest and say that, I love to engage with people, but because of my rare type of personality, I don't mind upsetting people. If they say, like, I'll give you an example. I went into a store just the other day and they said that this is the law, and they just meant that it was their policy. And my personality right away was like, no, that's not the law. You know what I mean? I'm a weirdo that way. You get what I mean? So anyways, I just want to
pedantic.
It's the wrong
You're
word,
pedant. I love it.
Yeah. Well, not just that. I'm actually I highly suggest, everyone calls it pseudoscience, but I highly suggest you look at Jungian psychology, not specifically the MBTI. I would look at the larger, I know, Chad, it sounds a little loony, but what I find helps is it helps you know who you are, what we were talking about here. And that's what helps me understand that, this is why people are so taken aback by me, because I'm not the type of person to go, I see your idea, but let's think about this. I would immediately push back and just go, well, I don't know about that. And you know what I mean? So it's that, like you guys are talking about, like, are you engaging with the ideas directly, or are you thinking about how the other person is going to receive it? And you know what I mean? Like, that's a whole separate way of engaging with the world. You get what I mean?
So somehow I've convinced people that I don't like models of psychology or something, because this is
just the Jungian thing.
But this is something that people say. They're like, I know, Chad, you're gonna have a blah blah blah.
You gave a face. That's why I thought. I'm sorry.
Somehow I do that, but the thing that where I get kind of squirrely with people is, or let's say kind of offended or pissed off or whatever, is when like where somebody's trying to convince me of a particular position or something, and then they're like assuming that I didn't already hold that position prior. And so I've once held that position, or that opinion. And I've long since moved on from that because it's no longer sustainable or doesn't work for my worldview. And then they're like, they'll continue to hammer on the thing as if I've never thought this through before, and it's like, that thing is interesting to me that we do that. Sometimes, usually this can best be applied to the model of trying to convince somebody of your political stances. Like, I grew up basically my whole life having a very liberal, politically or liberated spirit. Like, I was pro-life, or I'm sorry, pro-choice and all this stuff growing up, because like functionally. Yeah. And then once I actually grew up and had like my own experiences and really examined what it was that I believed, I abandoned those ideas. And then they're like, yeah, but you don't, so then they try, do you see what I'm saying? It's like they don't consider the full person that you are.
This is why, I don't know, I think this is the problem with the world at large, if I can be so dramatic, is that like there's this assumption that everything is a one-off. Everything is in and of itself just like a nugget, and it's not connected to anything else. And so they can't even make the assumption that you could have gone on a journey to get where you are of your beliefs. They thought, oh, Chad went and took it to this logical conclusion and then just like looked around and said, which one am I going to do next? And then popped into that. It wasn't like moving from this one into this one, bleeding into this one, maybe back to the other one. Like, no one thinks that that's what's happening because no one is connected to each other in that way. And so they just assume they're not connected to their thoughts in that way. And it's,
Yeah, they're treating people
so it makes
like
sense
text.
that they don't.
They treat people like text rather than like some static piece of text rather than a person that has gone through the many different avenues. So
they're only thinking about the one thing you said right here, right now, as just like a thing in and of itself. And that's not living. That's not life. That's not looking at a human.
And that's the thing where we become offended, and then our self-importance gets kind of poked, I guess.
Because that's where my anger comes from. Because I think anger is lack of love. Like, I think when someone does that to me, they're like taking me out of love. They're taking me out of living when they say you are just this nugget. And I get mad because I'm like, you're taking that away. You're like, you're plucking the flower or whatever. That's probably a bad analogy given what we were talking about earlier. But like, you're plucking me. You're killing me. You're killing this. The potential is gone.
Are you plucking kidding me?
Are you plucking kidding me? Exactly.
And you want to hear something hilarious? It's literally like talk about full 360. When the Buddha was asked about reincarnation, he didn't say anything. He reached down and he plucked a flower from the ground. And most people misunderstand this. It's called the Flower Adornment Sutra, whatever. It's plain and simple that what is life? Life is the slow death, right? That's what the Buddha meant. He went, once you're disconnected from source, and I love the superposition of being disconnected from God as well, right? Because remember, the original Buddhists, like the original Stoics, were not atheists, so don't misunderstand that. But long story short, I just want to get into this. This is why I, just to try to rehab my my identity here, this is why I dropped these terms. Because if I say prophelicity, sometimes people will think I'm talking about Moeller. Moeller is he's a professor from the Macau. He teaches at the Macau University of Hong Kong. He is prophelicity. Like, he is literally about trying to become famous on the internet. He took the term prophelicity from another philosopher. And just to give you an insight, I love that what was his Jay Zepp, he mentioned that he said that the self is a wheel without a hub. Once again, that's just a stolen definition. The self in Buddhism, in the Sanskrit idea, dukkha in Sanskrit actually is usually explained as a wheel that wasn't hung properly. So it's constantly kind of out of sync. So when you're riding this cart, it's like shaking you to death. So what I'm actually getting at is Baudrillard's prophelicity, B.J. Hahn. So this idea that the self is real, right? But it's something that we're constantly shaping. We're constantly evolving, and we're doing that in Congress with other, because think about it, this monk mode that a lot of people just went through recently, if you go and hide yourself away without people criticizing you and helping you stay on point, right? First Timothy 8-11, right? Like anything that doesn't fit to sound doctrine. That's what other people are there for. Laws are not for the wicked. They're not for the righteous, because they know what's correct, right? So I think this is why I dropped the words, is to explain that, when I say prophilicity, what I mean by that is this idea of Jung's persona. Like, to try to go back to, just as a finish, it goes back to Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche said that he was half Polish, half German. Everyone he ran into either saw him as Polish or German, or not Polish enough or not German enough, when in reality, we're none of any of those things. We're all a little bit. We're either Christian or we're American. We do this, we do that. All of it is just what I call a configuration file of the self. And if you start to weigh too much on any one thing, sorry, go ahead, Chad. That's the problem.
Well, this is kind of where I get kind of frustrated. I've been growing increasingly frustrated with the language around discussing ego, or all these different kinds of categories or stamps that we're putting on these parts of ourselves. and believe me, I'm in recovery circles, and they are obsessed with talking about ego and all this shit. And I just think it's like, in a practical sense, like, we don't really actually walk around having conversations considering that, oh, this is my ego or something like that. If you do that, that's just not having, it's not like actually living. And so I wonder, like, what is the purpose of having these kind of compartmentalized characters or scapegoats or whatever? And it's annoying to me, because, and then it becomes very confusing, because, like, right now I'm trying to actually do some step work on this and trying to figure out how to be in a position where God can remove the things that are destroying my spirit and my relationship with other people. And then this person I'm talking with is like pointing to, you can become the kind of person that isn't captured by the narratives and all, and you're being dominated by your ego and this and that. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? Seriously, because, like, I don't really know what the fuck you're talking about, and it's more confusing me than actually serving and getting me to a place where I can actually be, like, I feel like maybe there's a way of thinking about this. Maybe there are the lower spirits, there's me, and then there's God. Maybe that's a way of thinking about it. I don't know. And then maybe there's nominal spirits too. I don't know. Are those the higher or the lower? I don't know. See, like, it's just like what we treat these things. Okay, we treat the ego as if it's a real thing, in the same way that we treat gravity. Right? It's like the name or something, as if just because you've named it, now you understand it or something.
Yep. It's the way science treats consciousness. They're all talking about trying to replicate it, but none of them can define what it is.
Right, but we do the same thing when we say it's the ego or the id or the whatever.
Psyche. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this resonates more than I can express, Chad. Maybe I'll explain it to you someday. But like, I feel like when it comes to this idea of like the ego, just like with everything, it's like necessarily we're coming into it and saying this is bad. We're siloing even this idea of the ego, that we can't even talk about it without it becoming a thing, it becoming the thing that we're like zoomed in, focused on. And going back to what we were saying in the beginning, it's like the reason why we're talking about all these things, I think, is to open up the possibilities of the world, not to limit it down to this is this, this is this, this is right, this is wrong. It's like we're supposed to be using this to open up. And oftentimes when we use this language that's like saying, like, oh, focus on the ego, that's like taking you back. That's plucking the flower. That's like making it
limiting,
hard to understand, because it's not related to anything else. It's not like coming back to that real applicable worldly like meaning. And that's what kept me in like a really bad place for a long time, is because I kept coming back. I kept killing off that spirit. So I don't know if that's resonating with you, Chad, but that's what I heard when you were talking about it. And so no wonder it feels confusing, because if you're trying to attend to meaning, that's not I think the right way.
Especially when it's like, and then he'll turn around, the dude will turn around and he'll say, and it's not real. Okay, now you just fucking made this whole thing just seem
It's just such a translation. It's just,
Yes,
I personally think I ran into that, like with so many words. This is why I'm so obsessed with what I call modern philology, because they run into that with desire. I think I told you guys about that. The Sanskrit word is tanha. It's not desire. It's more like thirst. They often translate the word that they're talking about as not self, or sorry, no self, which is just an error altogether. I prefer to translate it as not self. The self is not what you think it is. Kind of like, anyways, not here nor there. I just find it hilarious is that you got examples in the chat of exactly what we're talking about. That if some, and I wrote about this on my Substack, which is interesting, that I find it kind of surprising. What do you guys think of this? That circles of people are more comfortable with someone who's against them than they are with someone who they don't know. You get what I mean? Like if someone has nuance to them, like if you can't flatten who and what they are, if you can't know, like, you know, often. Like,
is this
who
like
are
the
they?
devil you know type of thing?
Yes, or in this case, I guess so. Yes, because they're against you, right? They're an opponent, and so because you know they're an opponent, you're like, okay, I know who they are. I can categorize who they are. So now I know who they are. I've othered them, as opposed to someone who you don't know, right? Because I'll just be honest, you'd all be surprised at what my actual faith is. I just don't share it because I have found invariably it is almost always used against you, as opposed to, you know, as to what they say to understand the other person. You know what I mean? So that's why I don't share it, because I've been doing this for 30 years. You know what I mean? Talking about this stuff, learning about it. You know what I mean?
That's the
so
Peterson
I think what
move,
you guys are
actually.
doing is perfect. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think that's the actual Peterson move, what he's been doing the whole
I
time.
think so. Yeah. I think I agree with you. I've been wondering about that for a long. I thought it was because he was like, okay. And just to give you an example in chat, I can't believe how many people think Jung was an atheist. It blows my mind. And same like Nietzsche, I understand. It's not a surprise that you might misunderstand. Nietzsche was not an atheist. Neither was Jung. So I don't believe Peterson, and I believe he's probably Christian. But what I feel is if he were to declare his stance, then he would probably piss off more people than make
It'd be
happen.
more harmful than useful. At
Well,
least
I
at
think
one
it like
point.
politicians, yeah. Well, politicians like they do nothing because it pisses off less people, and I think that's what Peterson the movie chose. I think I would have preferred, like the example I give is one of my favorite videos is Peterson and Vivek Ramaswamy. They sat down for an hour and a half to talk about God, and they never clarified what each of them meant by God. So the entire hour and a half is them talking past each other. Exactly what Chad's pointing out here is like, you know what I mean? I love that. It's an atheist, Buddhist, Jungian monologue with no pushback from Christians. It's hilarious. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Is no attempt to understand the other is what Buber was talking about. If you other somebody, if you try to pigeonhole them, if you instead of holding an open mind to this stuff, very Peterson, yes, then it denatures your humanity as well as theirs. You get what I mean?
Yeah, but what's interesting is as soon as you other them, you just basically self them.
Yeah, well, I think that's the same exactly. Like you're freezing them, like assuming, oh, that's who they are, and it's normal. They say 90% of humans cannot hold two conflicting ideas at once, and that's arguably what someone you don't know, right? And I argue this is why we are tribal, not all negative. I believe there is some positives to tribalism. It was a shortcut to trust. You get what I mean? Like if someone shares your ideas, if they're speaking the same language, it saves you a little time from having to figure out, can I trust them? You get what I mean?
I gotta get to work.
I think the certainty, I think it's a little bit different than trust. I think it's certainty, and it maps a little bit to like your enemy. It's because you know where the lines are. If they're your enemy, right? I'm this, you're that. And so the lines are clear. When it's the unknown, we don't know where the line is, right? It's unknown, and we're learning. And in that process of learning, to like death is a possibility. losing a finger, right? So, and that's the recoil. And so then what do you put your trust in when you're in the unknown? If you put your trust in yourself, right, without having proper relations to where yourself came from, which is, I don't know, you would use a term like the divine spark, or what we were talking about a few days ago about the innermost parts of ourselves and where that comes from, right? If you're not in relationship with that properly, right, that becomes paralyzing to face the unknown. You don't want to grow. You just want to stay static, if anything.
Yeah,
And even that, as we see from your conversation last night, Megan, with over on Neil's channel, that posture of coming down to protect ourselves, shrinking, not even growing, right? And just the act of physically manifesting that growth by being up, it can spark it. And I know there's chemical messengers and all this stuff. You can hack your brain by smiling in the mirror when you brush your teeth, when you don't want to go to work, populate endorphins.
Smile while working out.
In fact, if I could just point out like BJ Hahn, he just published a book on hope. So I just want to highlight, it's not certainty, it's about confidence. But what's even funnier is BJ Hahn failed to talk about exactly what you just said. He presented positive psychology as ignoring the negative, as opposed to what it really is. Positive psychology is the realization that we have a negativity bias. In Vedanta, they talk about seeing the stick in the path as a snake to protect yourself, right? Negativity bias. So it's not ignore the negative. It's when negative comes up, which it will all the time, is find a positive to offset it. Because in the brain, the center of fear is often offset by rite and ritual. You guys get where we're getting here? So you can hack the brain, but that's what arguably religion is, right? Religion is hacking the brain because we are a primal creature that is set to fear everything and having faith in something that we can't, right? Psalm 46, right? Be still and know. So that to me is not about certainty. It's about confidence. That's St. John of the Cross, right? His obscure night of the soul. He says the way through, that's Dante, right? How to get out of hell and get to heaven. It's your way out is through. You guys get what I mean? So it's practice. And that's what I think people are missing.
That's the base of the mountain.
Frozen thinking. Yeah, I mean
that's the base of the mountain.
Yeah.
And so as we
like,
grow, we're climbing the mountain. The bad stuff's getting shed off, and I use bad. I know that's what I mean, but the stuff that doesn't comport to what you need to further go up the mountain has to be shed. Yeah. And at the bottom, it's the gardener, right? It's the gardener trimming it off through tradition, through religion, through practice, through the tribe. But then as you ascend the mountain, you get to be more of a participant of losing more of yourself and then becoming more of yourself as you get more in one or relationship with that inner spark that's inside of you. It's that two-mindness thing, but not, right? Yeah. It's you lose in losing yourself, you find yourself.
Yes.
Mark, I want you to come and talk, but I want to say one thing before you do. This is like linking back to, I'm not going to say sorry about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to point it out that I'm aware of it, but I'm not going to be sorry about it. Anyways, this relates back to, I think, what I was saying in the discussion last night of like what my idea of health is like being able to have courage. Like health is being prepared to be courageous. And like, that means being in fear or being open to failure. And I think somewhere along the line of society, we were basically told that if you say something once, you're living and dying by that idea, like forever and always. And so you always have to say the right thing, and you can't be like willing to make like some like, oh, I'm sort of curious about this, because you'll be canceled and like everything. And I think that's like making us unable to look at the unknown and encounter the unknown and make a confident idea based on the unknown, and then being able to be wrong, like being able to like come off of that and go through that idea and realize it's it is fallen, because I think you have to be able to go through it, have courageous in the fear of this might be wrong, in order to be a healthy human being, a healthy
disposer, I see.
society. So yeah, that's what I got.
Sorry, I was unmuted. Wasn't I?
Sorry, the phone's ringing.
Wow.
What?
No, it's just I took Mark's time, and then now he has to be on the phone. So I feel bad now. Now I will say sorry.
I just want to say, Brett, I think you're being an exceptional host.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm reminded of having a big party, and I'm not able to totally engage in the party. You know, and so I just want to compliment you on your hospitality here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I've been enjoying listening to how you guys are fleshing all of these things out. It's just kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
You know.
And for B, while we're waiting on, Mark, you're supposed to talk anyways, bud, right? He's back.
Yeah, I'm supposed to talk. I had stuff in my head and it's getting knocked out by other things.
Yeah, I know. You guys come up with so many great ideas
from the comments. Answerman said, where is it? Failure to speak up for Jesus is to deny him. And then Stephanie replied, I feel Christ has been at the center of this whole conversation.
I agree.
So I don't need to speak up for him. Yeah. And I agree with Steph. I'll also say Ryan the Hobbit, he does this 3-minute silence thing for you to pray at the beginning of his live stream.
Yeah.
And I did this yesterday, and I just looked at my garden, because if you believe in God and if you believe in Christ, then they are everywhere. Yeah. And so you can look at anything and see God and see Christ. I don't know why you have to throw in the word Jesus and God every other sentence. That would drive me insane if someone did that.
Well, I will say this, just like that. This is why it's difficult for me when you have philosophers like Ian McGilchrist, and if we quote a lot of these other guys, I know that there's, for some people, they'll give them huge stepping stones to get to another place, and so there's value in that stepping stone that people have a love tie to. So I'm okay with that, and I can give grace for all of that. The issue I guess I have is an example is that because I'm obviously Protestant, I don't look at any of these stepping stones, even some of the bigger ones that I can plant my foot on with some security, like church fathers. There's a lot of them that I think are amazing, but they're all flawed. So like the notion of them sainting them is the issue. And so like also when we saint philosophers and put them up on too high of a pedestal, it muddies the water, I think, of who Christ really is, what he's done, and why it matters. So for me, you know, I don't necessarily have to push the idea of Christ into the conversation. I think that ultimately that's where we're at. But that's the reason why it's difficult for me in spaces where when they are putting out the philosophers that they like and stuff like that, there's not, you know, all that can benefit me. I can benefit from that. It doesn't have to be my worldview. It doesn't have to be how I see the world. And I'm not defending against, the biggest one I had to learn from in this space was when people were quoting Nietzsche. And I'm going, what in the hell is wrong with these people? You know, because I feel like
quote Nietzsche.
Well, but you get my point. Like that's like
it's the ones that haven't read Nietzsche, Brett. You mean the ones that haven't read him? They're only quoting him, yeah.
But I get the fact that because his conclusions were so damaging, because people used his material in such a negative way and killed millions of people on the piggyback of the stuff he wrote. Yes, I can recognize.
If it makes you feel better. Yeah, his sister's the one that twisted it, yeah.
I agree. I know the history of that with the book and her rewriting a lot of his stuff. But I'm just saying, the idea of Nietzsche, right? This idea, whatever the formation, however it came about,
The
it
new
did
idea,
some
yeah.
damage. Yeah, and so like people have this revulsion to,
There's two Nietzsches.
being quoted, So, and I get that. I understand that. But I don't have a problem with the fact that, like, now I've learned from this space that if somebody wants to quote the darkest sides of Kierkegaard, they identified with that for whatever the reason. And I need to not be so corrective in the fact that, yeah, that was the bad time in Kierkegaard's life, that maybe you should not get so existential with that part of your life, So like, anyway, that's all I'm saying is just learning how to glean something from it.
I like that.
I don't have to accept everything, but I also don't have to reject it wholesale.
Can I give a perspective to this?
One of my problems.
Hold on, Mark. B's been quiet a while. Hold on. Mark, hold on.
I have not been quiet. I just took her spot again, but I'll say
I haven't heard you.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say to this is I feel like when people bring up ideas, there's like this, they use like sweeping statements for things and they don't really understand what they're talking about. So that's like a fair assessment to say like, oh, when people bring up these ideas, they're like idolizing these philosophers. But really, I think they're just idolizing ideas without actually like bringing like a meaning to it. But I hope that in this space, it seems like we're pointing to the ideas of philosophers, not because they're the ones who have coined it, but because they're giving their perspective on it. And so when I'm saying, I'm talking about this idea, the one that struck me was the way that Jordan Peterson said this idea, or the way that Nietzsche said this idea, or whatever. And so it's like, oh, if you want to see the angle at which I'm looking at this idea, this is the angle I'm looking at this idea. But I think it's important for the listener to also take in the personal of the person who's talking about that idea too. So it's not just the idea, but it's how that idea then creates meaning with me and the knowing of me. And so it's hard when we're like saying something in a very particular, this is the idea, but it's also the perspective of the idea. And then me looking at the perspective of someone else. Like it's so much bigger than that. It's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Because the idea is the idea, but the person expressing the idea has a different connection to it that needs to be considered.
Can I go one step further, though, and explain why I'm so pedantic about this?
Well, hold on, Al. We just
cut
Mark off.
Yeah,
cut him off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Guys, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're all right.
Terrible.
No, I was just going to say, actually, I'm just going to comment on a comment by Chad. Maybe this is why we all die, because we're wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
No, we die because the universe needs renewal. It's kind of inbuilt into the universe. But anyway,
don't give me propositional tyranny, Mark.
What was I going to say? So people misquote, not only misquote, which is bad, but they like, Nietzsche said God is dead, and it's like there's a slightly bigger context to what Nietzsche actually said. God is dead in the hearts and minds of men, and I forget the exact text for the rest of it, but it's something like,
God is dead
we
because
won't
we
have
killed him
enough.
because you no longer believe in him. Yeah,
Exactly.
We no longer believe. Yeah.
We won't be able to clean the streets of the blood, or something like that. And maybe Al knows the exact quote.
No, that's Marx actually, but yes, no, you're dead on. Yeah, the bloods in the street thing is the Marx thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, Nietzsche was the opposite. He said there was only one. And in fact, here's just to give you the insight. So I quote Nietzsche because, believe it or not, I've actually read him and I've studied him going back to the 90s when we actually read the books and we actually engaged with this crap and we read the material you needed to understand what he was getting at. But just so I can give you an understanding, Nietzsche said, God is dead because we have killed him. because we don't believe anymore, right? Because we claim to be Christians, but we're not, right? And so the reason why I use Buddhism as examples and philosophers is for two reasons. One, when I just talk about what a philosopher said, but I don't quote the philosopher, I get people going, well, so much, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. So I have taken, after 30 years of talking about this, of making sure that that's what the philosopher said, because I've actually had people disagree with a quote. And then when I'm like, well, I was actually quoting so-and-so, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I agree with it. You get what I mean? And then the other side is, I don't quote Christianity because I'm sorry. I have taken to use Buddhism as an example for faith, for belief in God and stuff like that, because it used to be, not anymore. It used to be that I could give Buddhism as an example and it wouldn't piss off everybody. Right? If I used Christianity or any other religion, it would make people upset. If I used, Indian, some people would be upset. So I find it funny now that I don't use Christianity. So I would point to Deuteronomy 5:29, Deuteronomy 6:4, Ephesians 4:4, Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 13:13, and the multiple instances where Jesus said that all of the commandments hang on the two, right? To love God with all of your strength and all of your being. That means everything. And to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So to me, that is like Barfield's, like, you get what I mean? So I find it hilarious that, like what someone said in the chat, my favorite comment was someone who said, like, I actually don't feel threatened looking at other theology. And I was the opposite, actually. Reading other theology, other religions, it actually reinforced my own faith, believe it or not.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
yes, 100%. And honestly, to be honest with Al, like, I value that he has the mental capacity and memory to cite the people he's actually quoting, and I think it's important, not just for him, but even for me, and I benefit from it. Now, other people, it may annoy them, but whatever, And so, like, it's helpful to have different parts of our wheel having strengths that it reinforce some of the conversation in an intellectual way. I mean, I'm the worst with remembering. I know most of the crap that tumbles out of my mouth came from somebody else. It isn't really an original idea, but I wish I could give. Yeah, and I wish I could give them credit because they deserve it.
Oh, is that what you mean?
But that's the thing. It's like, for me, I value people that have that capability and capacity to do those things and quote those people and also see the line and the track where where especially when you're quoting one church father off of another church father off of another church father. It's like, it's really helpful to realize, that was actually Origen originally, and this church father was piggybacking off of him, and this church father was picking up back off of him. And I think that's very helpful.
Can I propose a solution to this problem? Because I hate saying, and such said this. Why don't we just say, before we attempt to quote someone, quote Newton, I stand on the shoulder of giants.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, good point.
Then say...
Yeah, I quote Northrop Frye, a great Canadian. He's the one that wrote the Bible Code, which is telling people that you need to read the Bible even if you're not Christian because it has encoded our very language, our very being. But he also opened up William Blake. Believe it or not, up until the 40s, we thought William Blake was just a nutter. We thought he was just completely. But here's the thing. You know what changed? It just took what B was talking about earlier. I would call it engagement with care. So it wasn't someone just trying to make sense of William Blake to sell a paper or to see him. What Northrop Frye did is he's like, you know what? This guy is really circling something that seems pretty important. So let me try to figure it out. And he actually realized that.
I just lost you, Al.
Oh, okay. That's anyways.
Oh, I can hear.
Yeah. Long story short, he just said that. Yeah, he found out that it was he was using the Bible and Paradise Lost as the template. And when Northrop Frye applied those templates to William Blake's writing, it opened up all of it to us. You get what I mean? So for a couple hundred years, we thought he was a nutter. And for the last 100 years, we're only just beginning to realize how insightfully was. And I believe that's what's going on here. Like, we're trying to uncover ourselves, each other. You get what I mean? I don't see a difference. That's why it may seem weird. Philosophy, theology, art, all the same, I think.
Well, I feel like a life is a discovery of something that's already here. Like, I don't think anything that anyone has said ever is new. Well, I mean, it is in relative, like in relation to us and what we think. But like, I feel like it's all been there. It all is there. We're just slowly uncovering it. And I think using these phrases from people, like, I don't know, it'll hit differently for Scott than it'll hit with you, Al, or then it'll hit with me. And then what that does is it then creates a new meaning in me. And that's why I ought to speak my perspective, because that gives then another nugget of, I don't know, another like pixel in the image of the world. It gets a little bit clearer. And that's what I think we're supposed to be doing.
We're organizing. And I love it. It's literally, life is entropy chaos. So I see it kind of like a kaleidoscope. So I don't believe we are shaping the world into a pattern. I believe we're recognizing patterns, kind of like the way we look at a cloud and we see a sheep. It's not actually a sheep. We just see it, right? And I believe that's what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like, so I actually don't, I love what all of you said, this idea of self, other. I believe it is kind of in this gray area. Do you get what I mean? Like, you could say self doesn't exist, but at the same time, you can say it does. And both of you are right, because you need to explain what you both mean. Do you get what I mean? No?
And no, well, and where you are on the path too.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we've been chewing on this for a little bit, right? But if I'm talking to somebody who, spends their days watching, I don't know, Love Island or something, you know what I mean? Like, just dumping them right into the middle of this thing and then bludgeoning them with the rules that I've come to see, that's, and I think what you said earlier about the reasons why you use the things you do gives me insight then. And I think it speaks to your spirit in that, you're trying to adapt that to speak to the room,
broadest audience. Or the broadest audience possible. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Because the way I used to have it is I'd have a mix of atheist, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu. So I didn't know what my audience was going to be. So I had to make it as broad as possible. And if I fixated on Jesus, then that would turn a number of people off, fixated on this or that. So that's why I found, like, I mix in. Exactly.
And that speaks to, like, that not being focused on self. Right, you're in relationship with, not just the idea, but also the people you're conveying the idea to. And that's where this thing, and why it seems formless, but it has a form at the same time. Right,
it is literally the form. This is why I argue there's something called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's this idea that language, we use it to understand the world, but it shapes us. I argue it's called a hypothesis because it's what you just pointed out. I am driving. In fact, your user account is perfect. Am I? That's what I argue. Always be questioning everything. And that's literally what the insight is. But seriously, is the insight is, what is true? What is real? Are you engaging? Are you... I don't know. I digress. I apologize, but
not at all. Not at all.
No, it's great.
I think you guys are dead on. Like, that's why I quote Camus. Like, people miss this. There's only one serious question in philosophy.
What did you buy this week? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but there's only one serious question in philosophy, and that's what you guys are circling. Are you going to really, truly live and try to figure out to be the best possible person? And are you going to be present? And are you going to pay attention to reality? You know what I mean? So
breathe. And then breathe, right?
Yes.
There's times to, but then there's times not to. And like this in and outness that is, just thinking about that, like, just takes so much off, right? It's like an embodiment of that light yoke.
Yes, yoke. I love that. That's what yoga means. Yeah. And in fact, that's why I love breath. Right? Because it's that connection. The Zennies learn how to count their breath first. This is why it's Pneuma, Ruach. And this is why I pointed out to Barfield. And in fact, anyone who's asking what I believe, Barfield's probably closer to what I believe than anything else. He talked about this misconception that we had this belief that Ruach took on these additional meanings, as opposed to they always meant all of it at once. It meant breath and soul and life. And you get what I mean? And we're missing that today because we're not pedantic enough, I guess. We should be Peterson and go, well, what do you mean by that? Right? Like what B said earlier. What was the word you were using? What do you mean by masculine? Right? Because I have friends who are in finance. They're not the same kind of masculine as my friends who served in the military. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I just
maybe they are. They're just expressing it differently.
No, they're different. Trust me.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Literally, one of them are afraid, like literally one side are afraid to find out that I used to have guns and the other side are chuffed. So you know what I mean? One side's just afraid. You own guns? Oh my gosh. So that's a different kind of masculinity. Yeah.
Gotta say,
sorry, Meg. Go ahead.
Oh no, I just was gonna say, well, one, I love Chad's comment, play disc golf. Yes, it'll be the answer to everyone's problems. Just do that. I also wanted to say, well, I obviously value everybody and who's come in this conversation. I always love hearing you talk, Al. I don't know if it's because we read the same books or whatnot, but like
probably
I just feel like I follow that language. And so I've just been really enjoying this. I have to go, but this has been amazing. And I just want to say I appreciate this discussion so much.
The ideas you come up with, they are groundbreaking. It's what people need to be looking at. They sound pedantic, but this is what we need to be talking about. So thank you.
Yeah, I feel alive, which is great.
Yes.
This is the point. Cool. Thanks, Brett.
The more uncomfortable you feel, the better. The more that's the thing I've come to realize. Like, I don't know who said that recently. Oh yes. It was an actor. Like, who was it? It said, but he just said, great creation doesn't happen when you can when you can touch the bottom of the ocean. Great creation happens when you go out just far enough that you can no longer touch the bottom with your toes, when you feel uncomfortable. You get what I mean? And I think that's where you guys are starting to, go is going into uncomfortable places. I think that's my favorite quote from Jung. I put it in the chat earlier. He said, sometimes we need to leave reason aside to explore the sense and nonsense. And what he meant by that is, with your current paradigm, some things look like nonsense to you, but with a new paradigm, a new perspective, as you were saying, a different position on the path, then that no longer may no longer be nonsense. It might actually be the answer you were looking for. You get what I mean? And that's actually the essay that you shared, Brett. I was writing about how I use opponent processing in learning and understanding ideas in translation, in philology. So it's funny that I haven't put up the article I mentioned, but you shared one that was talking about something completely different, right?
Yeah. But very connected.
Yes, I believe that, to be honest.
So far behind on a lot of OG's stuff too. I just haven't had a chance to, there's tons of stuff. Scale and Spread, I missed. It's a 3-hour one, which looks like it's going to be awesome. Sense of Thought with C Money and OG Rose, so I'd be interested in what the Sense of Thought is. I'm not really sure. But then today is going to be Dream and Equality. Wow. So it'll just they've always got such good and interesting conversations, especially when I look at their title and I think one thing, and then I get engaged in their topics.
Oh, I love that.
I'm like, whoa.
It's not what you expected.
I was thinking at all.
Love that.
It's
love
almost
that.
even better.
Yep.
And that's
the
why
unexpected.
It's funny when Rob would be quoting OG Rose, and I'm going, you clearly don't know what Daniel's saying. Like, you're interpreting something completely different, than what I'm sensing Daniel is conveying. And Daniel's very good at the whole Occam's razor thing, he's very good at treading both sides in an equal, and giving both sides in equal framing to not isolate one side over another.
Wow. Let's take a look.
What do you think, Scott? Do you think we made any progress?
I mean, I
I feel.
feel. Hello?
I think
Hello?
his Bluetooth is going. Try rebooting. The Bluetooth is not connected, maybe. Not the
Hello?
mic, anyways. Or is it all of us?
My bad.
The
My
internet.
mic got disconnected. No, it's my earbuds.
Hello?
Go ahead,
Can you
Scott.
hear
I'm
me?
sorry. What were you saying? Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like this. I feel like we reached a dialogos. We were, kind of fleshing stuff out, and we're looking and we're seeing, and like ultimately it comes down, and I think this is part of it is us, fleshing it out together, right? And so now that the issue is, how do I incorporate it? How do I put this into my work? How do I put this into my, relationships with my brother,
Integration.
sister, mom, dad, all the people that I have been given stewardship over, and even the relationship with my house. So all these things. And so that then becomes the interesting part is doing that well and trying to be in that as much as possible. And it for me personally, it'll be interesting in how I try to incorporate that into the caged animal that I have in the recesses of my soul.
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean you? Yeah.
Yeah, the dark side of me, right? Because
That's perfect.
Yeah.
The shadow, you mean, right?
Yeah. Because I still haven't been convinced that loving that thing the way Chad described it in that dream months and months ago, and giving that thing a hug.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not convinced that that's the move, because of what I've seen that thing do. And so I'm back and forth. Yeah, I'm back and forth because speaking to Daniel and OG Rose, they were talking very much about how the thing can become Luciferian and how you have to bind that, and which I feel like I've done, probably ineffectively. But how do I then, because in their discussion yesterday, it was around there's some good that can come out of it. And part of the issue may be that I have it bound in properly and that it's not getting out effectively, right? And I think there's maybe something there. We were talking about a little earlier about the unknown and shutting down, right? And that's kind of where I'm going to have some issues mapping this thing in order to experience the fullness as I more ascend this mountain.
Pleroma. Yeah.
But I think that's the life's journey, right? I'm not like, oh, I got my 10 rules. Let's go.
And I argue that's what I love AA and the 12 steps for what it is, but I argue you're dead on. If you think that's the entirety of the paradigm, then yeah, that's maybe a problem. Because let me give you an insight. Another one of my favorite quotes of Nietzsche, if I can risk upsetting Brett, he said, careful looking too long into the abyss or too deeply into the abyss, right? The abyssal, great Greek word, right? To do a word study on. But what he was talking about is what you're pointing at is that you have to look into the abyss. You have to look at that darkness. But here's where I think the disconnect is. I think when you embrace it, it gives this perception that you're supposed to be like, oh, okay, hey, buddy, I love you, and you're going to give them an avenue in the world. What I think Nietzsche was getting at is you have to come to know your shadow to control it, control that monster. So it's not an embracing in that way. It's an embracing as in Hannah Arendt's banality of evil. You need to admit that you have in you great potential for evil to restrain that great evil. Do you get what I mean by that? Yeah. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah, exactly. So nobody stares too long into the abyss. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What does, yeah, exactly. That's the idea. The abyss. What does the abyss bow to? And Chad is hitting dead on. If you look too deep into that shadow, you'll actually grow it. You'll give it more power. And that's the danger I think we're talking about. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan, sorry I didn't see you backstage. I had to catch it from inside. But just so you know, we figured out the echoes, and you need headphones.
Oh, is it a headphone thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what happened with B.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened with B. And we didn't know what was. So I noticed because you had the issue too the other day, and I'm thinking, okay, it must be a StreamYard thing.
Yeah.
But it will be helpful because it started to come back again. That's why I muted you, but you can unmute whenever you want to talk, and we'll kind of just let you talk.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to pop in for a second and just ask the question. So a question and a comment. So the first comment off of what you said, Al, I appreciated the shadow conversation because I listened to a lot of Martin Shaw, like his storytelling. A lot of his stories are like that he's learned, especially from like Native American groups, is all about like learning how to have a relationship with your shadow self, and then you become a full person.
The Irish
once
as well. Yes, sir.
You have a relationship with it. So maybe it's not fully embracing it, but like Al said, it's the knowing how to live with it so that you don't it doesn't control you and break out one day and destroy you. So that's the cool connection I saw there. The question is, and then I'll pop off because I have to go. But the question is, so we've used the analogy of the mountain, but what is the mountain that we are trying to climb? What is the thing that we are trying to climb up? What are we trying to reach? What is the mountain within the analogy of climbing the mountain? You guys are great.
Yeah, that's a good point. Somebody else asked that, and I think personally, for me, okay, because this is obviously the way I'm interpreting the mountain. To me, it's the tip of the mountain is our religion. And my religion, I mean, it's what Paul was talking about. PBK was talking about. What we see as the highest, and the journey up the mountain is how to get there. And the closer we get to the top of the mountain, the narrower it gets. The more defined it gets to the top. So we hit these plateaus, and I even think a mountain's a great analogy because you'll hit these plateaus where you can literally stand. It's a nice big wide space. You have good footing. There's no real way to go further down the mountain because you've reached a solid foundation. And so like the further we go in understanding and truth, and even if it's our own journey up the mountain, is kind of how I see it. You know, it's like I may choose a more treacherous route. Someone else may have one that's much easier, and it's, you know, and so like me maybe seeing, oh, look at Scott, he's over there, and there's almost like a little mini road spiraling up. You know, like maybe I should try to find my way over and intervene over to that spot where Scott's at, and I can follow him for a little bit. And then maybe Scott starts going up a more treacherous route, and I'm like, no, dude, like we were going, look at, there's still a little path here. You know what I mean? So like, to me, the analogy is really apropos in a sense that you really can use this analogy to kind of see that all of us do see the tip of the mountain as is really the same thing. I mean, really, if we do it broadly and say it's a religion to keep it uniform for all of our mindsets, but ultimately my vision is that just above the mountain, who's speaking to the mountain, is God, you know, and so I'm trying to draw closer to him, have a better relationship with him, hear him clearer. So that's why I love everybody's ways that they're doing it. Like when people criticize Ryan, oh, you're not your vineyard, but yet you're doing Anglican liturgy. It's like, what do you, dude? He's reading scripture and praying. Like, how, you know, do not, like, what is the big deal? You know what I mean? Like, how can you, like, as a Protestant, for instance, for me to criticize that is ludicrous. You know what I mean?
I think so.
And so,
Yeah, so it's like, okay, this is where there's a comfortability, there's a connection they're getting with Christ, especially in our space. They're not usually doing it just to fit in, or for family tradition in most cases. And I think family tradition's fine. That's what you're accustomed to. There's a comfortability there, okay, but as you're exploring you and your relationship with Christ, I do find there being a benefit to realizing I may be better in this sphere, this space, because I feel a greater connection with Christ in this thing that I'm doing. So, that's why I appreciate Scott. Like he's not coming down on one side or the other when he's trying to figure this out. Obviously, I'd encourage Scott to find a church regardless and just be in a church and just try it out for a while, and engage with the people and try to make a go at it, and then see how it is connecting to you and how it's working through you. I'm only using you as an example, Scott, because yeah. So
that's what I want. And I think part of the thing that I'm coming to the answer, what is the mountain, is, and you pointed exactly to kind of what I think I'm starting to adjust is, yes, I thought that I'm beginning to believe that God isn't just at the summit, though, that God is the mountain. He is the path. He's the little rooms that Al's pointing to. He's like the whole thing. He's the journey. He's even the people that are way down at the base of the mountain that haven't ascended to where I am. And in so doing that, I have to think about this little dark spot within myself. If that realignment is true, then there's God, something inside of that thing too that I've isolated off. And if for nothing else, letting it out so that the parts of it that need to be burned off are burnt off, right? Because I feel like there's a sense that I have a sense that there's something in that is very likely tied to my emotional maturity, right? That's inside this thing that I got locked up in the cage, rightly so, for when I was down at the bottom of the mountain to keep this thing going, that I think I'm being there's something in me right now that's saying, all right, now it's time to look at this thing. Yeah, I know it caused problems in the past, but I want to examine that, right? And I want to look at, not me personally, but this idea of God being the whole mountain and the summit and the view and the goal, right? Is that I need to do some examining in that sucker, and I have a real sense that on the other side of that journey will be a whole nother world that is going to be both amazing and beautiful and rich and all the things that the past life was trying to find.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Well, I was thinking like this. I was looking at it like this, because I'm trying to keep the Trinity in the way that I'm trying to observe this, right? So to me, the Father is above the mountain. He's there's kind of a disconnect necessarily to me and him if I'm at the base, right? But the mountain wasn't there until Christ. So in a way, maybe we could use the mountain as Christ's path to get to the Father, right? The bridging, right, between us and the Father. And we could say that was the cross. We can say it was all these things, right? So for me, it seems like when he says, I am the way, I am the way, the truth and the light, and so like for me, going up the mountain, the Holy Spirit whispers me over this way on the mountain, and whispers, or even maybe even gives me his hand and helps me get to the next ledge, and or puts somebody in my path that helps me get to the next ledge, because the Holy Spirit's working through them also, so like I kind of like that visual of since we're using the mountain metaphor, only because I'm not really climbing God, right? Like so to say the mountain's God, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, but I understand why, it's like we kind of see the metaphor in our own way, and I don't necessarily know it's one's right or one's right, but I kind of like remembering there's these three distinct persons that are involved in this process, and they all have their own role, their own, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I guess
I think you're pointing to the danger that I see in doing this, right? Is that danger of that pride, right? That if I can do this and if I can become closer to God, what does that do to me, right? And I think that's what you're pointing to, and I appreciate the interesting guidepost, the little caution sign there.
And Al, by the way, I just found this out. I didn't realize this, but I guess that mansion word was added.
I didn't mean it as a correction. I meant, look at what it actually means. Meno is to remain, to abide. I was making your point. Yes, sir.
In many rooms. Yeah, it's better translation. I thought that was fascinating that you brought that up, just because I just heard that the other day. And I didn't realize there was a mistranslation on this term.
Just so you know, I know you're kind of against the doctrines of the church, but this is, well, I know, I'm just, you know me, I'm being funny. I'm trying to be funny. So St. John of the Cross, everyone knows because of the dark night of the soul and his ascent of Mount Carmel, right? St. John of the Cross. But he was inspired by a lady, Teresa of Avila. And she wrote a book about the many mansions of Christ. So it's even more beautiful. And believe it or not, and here's where it gets crazy. I did a study, and Teresa of Avila's many mansions of God actually maps to the Buddhist jhanas, like when they go through these states. So if I can just wrap it all up, mountains is an archetype. Like Nietzsche, I know you don't like him, but his opus is about a hermit going to the top of a mountain, realizing what we needed to do as a person, coming down and trying to teach us, and us rebuking him, right? Or the Chinese Book of Change. Within it, any great accomplishment, any great achievement would be climbing a great mountain or crossing a river, right? So I just argue that, what I said earlier, that it fits Fry, what I was trying to get at. Fry said that everything that we know is laid down in a river like silt, right? So the Bible, even if you don't read the Bible, it still is underneath other things that you read. You get what I mean? Because the Bible, and so that's this idea of the many mansions. It's become an archetype. People maybe not even understand the idea of a mountain as being, right? So I guess as a final, for me, that always stood out was how many times Christ went off to commune with God alone, right? Climb a mountain. Even in Matthew 14, just before he taught the masses and sent the people out on the lake, he was communing with God, and he sent them away so he could go back to communing with God, right? So what I believe, and this is why I use Buddhism to teach it, because there's this expression in Sanskrit called sati sampajanya, and it means to remember the tenets of your faith, right? Sati. And sampajanya means to carry it into all aspects of life. And I love that because that, I believe, is the real reading of Deuteronomy 6, right? To wear the Shema on your hand, I believe, is asking us to everything we do, action, will show our love of God. Wear it on your forehead, meaning everything that you think represents God. And it's very clear because it talks about teaching your kids in the house. You get what I mean? So personally, I see it as a unifying message, because one of my favorite passages in one of my favorite books is Go Set a Watchman, right? That's Isaiah 21, and it's Harper Lee's book. If you read this idea of a watchman or a lookout, I believe it's our conscience. Do you get what I mean? So we're meant to each other and ourselves to always be watching, right? Yeah, anyways, that's all I wanted to share. I apologize if I digress.
Not at all. No, not at all.
Yeah. And I guess as a final, John, I put it in the side chat that always resonated for me was this idea of be in the world, but not of it. I think that's what it's teaching, right? We are profane. We are sinful creatures, all that jazz. But the lesson is to metanoia, to turn towards a realignment. Carl Jung's summum bonum, right? The greater good. That I wouldn't say is like Brett. I agree. It's not the summit of the mountain, but to ascend that mountain is to metanoia, to turn towards the greater good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also I like the metaphor, or it wasn't even a metaphor, like biblically, when the transfiguration was occurring, this Shekinah cloud, just knowing that the Holy Spirit, this cloud, this spirit was just like all consuming around the mountain. And it reminds me of early Genesis and like
the tent
in
following the
in
cloud.
Exodus. Yeah, it's just so cool to see, like,
I love that too.
The fear that they had of this mountain. Like, they're not going up the mountain.
Exactly.
Luckily, they said don't go anywhere on the mountain, like don't do that. Moses ascends the mountain, which was, like his, and then he comes down with this face that's so glowing that people, it's like, like clearly there was a presence that he was so close to God that literally it's freaking people out. And they're like, put a veil on your face. And it's like, it reminds me of the Plato's cave type situation. It's like you come out, you come down and you're acting in the world with this new understanding, and people are going to hate you for it.
Yep.
They're going to want to kill you because you're threatening their worldviews, their structures that they felt like they were standing firm on, and so like it is important.
Misalignment.
Yeah, and it's important to always remember what Christ is talking about. Do it in love, right?
Yep.
I mean, if we're not engaging the world with love, we're gonna just literally be, perceived as some sort of battering ram against somebody's psyche, and I don't think that's right either. So that's probably the other takeaway that I have in that idea.
I just quickly, if I could, just to share my history. So I am so freaking old that when I first started studying this stuff, it was a different world. In fact, I've been studying Sanskrit so long, they've changed how we pronounce it three times in the time I've been studying it. So just to give an insight of Anselm, when he was talking about this, he said Jesus was not a Buddhist. No, I agree. He was not a Buddhist, but nobody is a Buddhist. It's a philosophy of life, but neither here nor there. He said, is going to God alone undermines what, right? So here's the truth that we've come to realize. So when I first started studying, we studied religion as independent, right? In fact, it was even heretical to suggest that maybe the Jewish religion was influenced by Zoroastrianism, but fast forward to today, we now know that was wrong. Like, I'll give you a couple of examples. Pyrrhonism, Stoicism, Epicureanism in Greece, they're just Greek Buddhism. Because when I was originally studying this stuff 20 years ago, we thought that the Bactrian Greeks, the Greeks that went to northern India, didn't interact with the actual philosophy of India because of language barriers and time. Well, we found out all of that was BS. In fact, they actually they lived together for years. We dug up a new temple in 2021 in the Swat Valley that showed that Alexander had kind of a home base at this town. They stayed for years, like growing food and stuff like that. So people like Pyrrhon of Elis, when he went on campaign with Alexander, it is hubris, or even, I think, a fever dream to believe that he didn't bring any documents back from India back to Greece. Because at the time, we knew for a fact that the Chinese were coming into India, translating Sanskrit documents and bringing books back to China at the time. But here's the real 360. Jesus grew up just up the road from a fork in the Silk Road. We used to think the Silk Road was a simple road, but we've now realized that it was a very complicated route. So again, hubris to believe that Jesus wouldn't have been introduced to some of these other philosophies, because around this time in northern India, in Taxila, there was proto-Sufi, proto-Buddhism, proto-Vedanta, whatever you want to call it, all these different faiths living together, learning from each other. So I find it what I call a West wash of history, that, you know, Jesus wouldn't have been introduced to some of these other philosophies back then. You get what I mean?
And let's not forget, the guy, we believe he's the Logos, and he was
also,
from.
yes.
He was.
Thank you,
he was-
Brian. I was just gonna say that. Like he
I'm
didn't
sorry.
know Buddhism was around.
Right. And what's interesting is when they write about him and they talk about the things he said, they're never citing the Greeks. They're never citing Buddhists. They're never citing, you know what I mean? He has a distinct language that is completely
Jesus.
unique. And
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, and his parables, it's almost like, thank God he spoke in parables, because somebody would try to appropriate the things he's saying. Oh, he must have gotten that from so-and-so. Oh, he knew all of that, because we believe he is from creation. He is the creator, and therefore, you know, yeah. Hey, Mark, I'm sorry. Yeah. Thanks for texting that in the chat, because I'm not near, I can't see who's in the room.
You mentioned it. Just an Anselman comment. Jesus was not a man influenced by false religion. Maybe, but that's not what he said. He said he was aware of them.
Yeah.
Which is very different.
Yeah, like just to give.
Secondly,
yeah.
you're talking
Exactly.
about.
Sorry, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're talking about the idea of masters. Yeah. No.
Master.
I don't
You're
know.
talking about the idea of mansion.
Oh, mansions. Well, no. What
Yeah.
we was is it was originally Brett invoked a passage in the Bible, and this is what we were talking about, how important interpretation is, but it can also confuse it. So it's been interpreted as there's many mansions in my Father's house. But what it meant is there's many ways of being, there's many ways of alignment, there's many ways to abide in God's house, and God's house is to be a believer. And I think that relates to what y'all were talking about, because the Bible constantly talks about the believers in the true God are going to be oppressed by the others. And I believe that's what it is. It's talking about selfish people, hedonists, pagans, all of them will be upset by you, because if you're living a righteous life, it makes them realize how unrighteous they are. You get what I mean? And that's what we were talking about. If that brings you up to date, Mark.
Yeah, slight twist. I think we should inhabit every room, but in this is the idea of the master of the house. Gurdjieff talks about this house has many rooms.
Familiar with Gurdjieff? Yeah.
I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to go into another analogy he gave, and that's the idea of the horse, the wagon, let's call it, and the driver. And the wagon symbolizes our body, the horse symbolizes our emotions or our heart. Because horses are spirit, they're very spirited animals. And the driver represents our mind. And ideally, they'd all be working together, but unfortunately, the driver doesn't look after the wagon, and so our body gets all messed up. And he keeps forgetting to feed the horse, and he'd rather be in the pub all day just drinking instead of driving the taxi. And ideally, there should be a master in the wagon who is directing everything and coordinating everything.
Directing the driver, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But unfortunately, instead of having a master there, the wagon is stuffed full of people telling the driver to go in different directions.
Yeah.
I thought you might agree with that, Al.
Dead on. There's an old philosophy saying about the mutiny on the bounty idea, right? That imagine if everybody on the bounty mutinied at the same time, like everyone's pushing and pulling. So there needs to be, but this is where B came in. Deuteronomy 5:29 talks about this discernment, hamavdil in Hebrew. It's something we're given by God, right? In Deuteronomy 5:29, in the original Hebrew, it says it in three separate ways. It says that God gave us a heart to know right from wrong, this discernment. He also gave us a heart to want that to happen, that tikkun olam, right? The rebuilding of the world. But the third mention is that God has a heart that he wants us to use that discernment in the world and abide in it. You get what I mean? That's if it makes sense. So yes, I love that what you said there, and I believe.
And can you do something for me, Al? Define abide.
Abide. Well, it depends. If you want to go actually historical, abide is exactly what we're talking about. It is the metanoia. So metanoia originally meant to turn towards, but what it means is a realignment. So to abide means to live, to embody, to not go around saying I'm a Christian, but then cheat someone. It is to literally be the embodiment of Christ as close as you can be, obviously. You get what I mean?
That's a good distinction, because see, this is where I think a lot of traditions get it cloudy. And this is my opinion, and it's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But when people say, we're the body and I am Christ and we are Christ, the church is Christ, I'm like, this is thing, I need a better understanding of what you say is, because clearly I don't see things the way you do. We are as close as we can possibly be if we're facing Christ, if we're participating like Christ, if we're doing things because we love other people and we're doing things like Christ did. He loved other people. So we're trying to be as close as we possibly can to walking this path the way that he walked. And so like it gets really cloudy and mystical when we use, the embodiment term. Sometimes it seems like people are taking this to such an extreme degree that they're literally replacing themselves and Christ in one, in a way that I don't necessarily think Scripture teaches.
That's Joseph Campbell wrote about this. I could give you other examples. There's this neither here nor there. I'll stop doing the quotes. There is a famous Sanskrit phrase called Tattvam Asi, and it's sometimes translated as "I am God," but it's two ways of seeing it. Like how much hubris do you have? How arrogant are you? Sorry, pardon my language. How arrogant are you to think that you are God? Right? That's the same thing. Until I read Joseph Campbell and found out that some people read that Sanskrit phrase Tattvam Asi as "I am God," I never saw it that way, because when I read Psalm 46, line 10, "Be still and know that I am God," in no way do I read that as me. Right. But it's a language too, right? This is why I think we need to do these linguistic deep dives, because I am, Esher, Esher, is a name for God. So it's kind of like when we call Mary full of grace. Most people don't understand that's another name for her. So I am is literally the name for God. You get what I mean? Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute though.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting, because children of God is what comes to mind, right? So as we allow that spirit to work in us and transform us, right? Becoming less of ourselves, of the old man, of the old Adam, becoming less of that and more of the other thing. We become God, but not God. We become children of God in the same likeness, in the same spirit, which allows us to be inherited into the kingdom.
Yep.
But you have to let this separation get closed, right? You have to embody it. And I want to give the Webster or Google definition of abide, because I think it was interesting.
There's multiple definitions. Read all of them though. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. They come down to 3. The word abide means to stay, wait for, or accept something. It has been used in English since the 12th century. Today, people use it to mean tolerating a thing, following a rule, or remaining in place, which it's really, I found that to be like oddly like self comes to mind. It's like through the eyes of the self where those definitions are. And so common meanings are to tolerate, used mostly with a word can't, to show strong dislike. I cannot abide loud noise. To obey or follow. Used as abide by, to mean following a rule, law, or choice. But see, that seems so disembodied from it. Like, that seems so superficial. And then the last one they mention is because there's religious context as well.
Check this out,
Scott. What? Go ahead.
Check.
I was reading them off. You said.
Yeah. You've got a verb that's intransitive, right? And that one this is 1820, okay? So we'll go back as far as we can. To rest or to dwell, that's the first one. The second one is to tarry or stay for a short time. Mm-hmm. The third one is to continue permanently or in the same state, to be firm and immovable. The fourth one is to remain, to continue. And then in the verb, the transitive verb, it is to wait for, to be prepared for, to await. The second one is to ensure or sustain, and this is where Anselm is having a problem. To bear or endure is number 3. So what's interesting is that I understand how traditions have taken abide to a whole nother physical dimension. You know what I mean? But I that's not how I'm reading. Maybe what we will do, I'm going to start writing words down that I'm going to do a lexicon, Greek translation for, to help say, okay, when they were using this word, abide in Greek, what were they discussing? Or in Hebrew, what were they discussing? And try to put ourselves in the context of an Israelite, to try to put ourselves in the context of a first century Jew, and say, okay, like how would they have been using this word in their context and not all the baggage of modern slippage.
I would go and add one more thing. I wouldn't do that bookending. I agree in historical, what we would call horizontal history. Right. So you're going to study when it was originally written. But here's what I would recommend. Follow the linguistic chain from the beginning to now. You get what I mean?
You mean even before the word was written?
Yeah. Well, you have to, because often it's borrowed from the Greeks. But no, what I mean is follow how that word evolved with Christians even. So you could understand how a 5th century Christian might see the world differently. Again, linguistic relativity. So if they see a particular Greek word or a Latin word as meaning this, then that's how it's going to affect their worldview. So I argue we need to follow how a word evolves, but don't ever flatten it. You need to understand that the word meant this and this always did. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can clarify if I understand you correctly.
Yeah.
And I think I'm on board. We need to go back to the past, even if it was a Greek word that was 300 years before Christ, because as they're writing that Greek word, there's the context of that word and how it has been used up until that point. Then to understand traditions, how that a word has evolved the next 600 centuries, realizing that when they're using this word, they have a different connotation, right? And so I understand why Anselm does have an issue here, because he's holding on to a 600 AD understanding through his tradition.
Yep.
And
you can't do that, right? Because everything is changing. We talked about this. That's what impermanence in Buddhism is the fact that everything is coming into being or is denaturing. You get what I mean? Like, that's just science, right? And like, I'll give you an example, like that essay I was writing before I found you lovely people this morning, it's the most controversial Greek word in Homer's Odyssey. And it's polytropos. And you guys might recognize those words in the modern poly means many. Tropos is now mostly known as a trope. So it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like abide to people nowadays mean, oh, I'm going to put up with something I don't like. Whereas historically, and it should be today, it can mean both. It can mean both something you're putting up with you don't like, or realigning with something that you do. You get what I mean? So
Yes.
polytropos, historically, in Homer's Odyssey, and this is where Emily Wilson made a mistake. She just translated it as a complicated man. Odysseus, it didn't mean complicated. This is why we need to teach this. When they wrote it in Greek, they used the word polytropos because it meant he was a king, he was a husband, he was a father, he was a dog father, he was a warrior, he was a sailor, he was a hero. He was also, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not a shyster, but like he was kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like he
Trickster is what they
trickster.
said.
Yes, he could be a trickster. And it was meant all of it at once. You can't flatten it down to one word. Do you get what I mean? And that's where we're failing. That because people don't want to hold that nuance, they'll flatten a word to one meaning, and that strips away the meaning. And as I said earlier, I argue by flattening a language, taking away the multiple depths of meaning, then you're flattening your very humanity. You get what I mean?
Yeah, and I'd like to point out as a helpful reminder in the modern context of what abide isn't, the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, yeah.
The dude abides.
The dude abides.
And that's why modern idea of abides isn't accurate. That what he's saying about the Big Lebowski isn't accurate. It's what that word means. But we understand what it means in the movie, which is fine. You know, contextual variance and not flattening it 100%. Mark, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, it's still a funny movie.
Yes, a great movie, but it's not theology. Yes, it's not even Taoist, and some people say it's not. I actually am a Dudeist priest, by the way, just so you guys know. I was a Dudeist priest. I'm also a
Dudeist priest.
Yeah, actually, I was. I'm an ordained priest of Dudism, but I don't associate with them anymore because they became so commercial, which kind of goes against Dudism.
Oh.
But anyway,
It's just a funny trope.
It was a religion that developed from the movie. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I thought you said I was in Judas Priest.
No, I was a Dudist priest.
Dude.
Yeah, Dudist priest.
That's why the Big Lebowski, what he said meant more than people even can understand and comprehend. And I honestly, go ahead.
I think that speaks exactly to what we're talking about, though. How the abide took on this like other thing, and so getting to kind of the heart of that. One other thing I would say is it'd be helpful not just to air quotes know what they were saying, but then how that particular scripture then applies into the now, right?
Yes.
So that it can continue to have its impact and meaning.
Well, that was my argument in the essay, is that there's two arguments about how do we get a modern audience to appreciate classical literature. I argue you cannot modernize classical literature, right? Because as soon as you modernize it, you have flattened it and you have made it worthless, right? Homer's epic as it was written, sure, most people engage with it as translation, but you can, if you wanted to, read multiple translations or learn the Greek, right? So it's there for you. But in a modern sense, this is what I'm getting at. Soon as they make Emily Wilson's modern translation of Ulysses, or the Odyssey, sorry, soon as they translate that into a movie, well, that's now going to be the way people see the Odyssey. This is historical. It's happened a number of times. Romeo and Juliet, you know what I mean? Except a couple examples, like me, I like Mel Gibson's Hamlet better than Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet. You get what I mean? So sometimes there's movies that can be, but they're a separate thing. I consider Hamlet separate from the movies. You get what I mean? But most people don't. When the movie comes out, like To Kill a Mockingbird. Do you know To Kill a Mockingbird? One of my favorite books. I've read it more times than I could ever guess. And it used to be listed as people's favorite books next to the Bible. But do you know that I have yet in the last 10 years to find someone who has read the book? They've watched the movie. You get what I mean? And so I argue our problem is that we're not reading anymore. Like, it's none of this stuff. This is what you're dancing around, I think. It's not an identity issue per se. It's not an understanding or a comprehension or a knowing thing. It's that doubt. Like, I recommend BJ Hahn's, his most recent book. It's on hope, but he talks about this, right? Hope is the first step towards wanting to know. Doubt, if you want, call it that as well. Do you get what I mean? No? I believe having a more open mind actually opens you up more. I was trying to get at that. Go ahead.
I like that. No, I like that.
And I think that's what Dudism was meant to be, just a more open-minded perspective on the world, you know?
What did you say at the beginning of that I just forgot now what I was going to comment on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I talked too much.
That
Yeah.
gives Mark a chance to speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. No, he's talking to somebody. So I guess it's really good because the communication, this is where I think communicating and understanding is important. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I think what we're doing is trying to repeat what Socrates was warning about in writing. Yes, we need to read, and it's important. I'll tell you what's more important. Me not rewatching the movie and assuming that's what the writer meant, and having someone like Al help me in communication without me reading it and saying, hey, this is what was being said, and you sharing your opinions on the belief on what you think the author meant and said, and maybe even have contrasting views on these opinions on how they were interpreting the original book itself. But what's important to me is, if the book is going to be the book we're talking about, it might even be helpful for me to listen to multiple views on the writing, even if I don't read it. So like, it is a little bit, it's really arrogant for me to say, yeah, I understand the Mockingbird. I saw the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's very shallow and superficial in your understanding of the true conversation that's being had. However, I do agree with Socrates. I feel like writing really did us a disservice, you know, that it did make us to a certain degree
Yes, sir.
stupid because one person's going to write something down and we're not going to know really what they actually internally meant. And by communicating with each other and probing each other on our ideas, who's the author of To Kill a Mockingbird?
Harper Lee.
Can you imagine sitting down with Harper Lee and having a conversation about To Kill a Mockingbird?
Well, I have actually.
What?
The videos, right? That's what I'm getting at. That she was so averse to sitting down and talking about it, but a few times she did sit down. And you're right. That to me is one of the most wonderful things, is to watch Nell Harper. Nell Lee. Sorry, she went by Nell. To hear her talk about the book and the stories, that to me is so rich. And yeah, I think but here, follow me though. So I want to interview my favorite modern philosopher, BJ Hahn, and just tell me if you'll understand what I'm getting at here. This might throw a little wrench in the works. I want to interview my favorite philosopher. His name is Byung-Chul Han. Awesome philosopher. The problem is he's Korean, lives in Germany, so there'll be a bit of a language barrier there. But here's a joke I want to open my interview with BJ Hahn. I would like to say, BJ Hahn, I'm excited to have you here. I love your work, but I've never read a single one of your books. I've never read a line of any of your books. And just to see his reaction, because BJ Hahn is one of the authors that I've only ever listened to. Right. So I am in a superposition here. I argue that Socrates was right when we made reading or grokking these ideas, specifically the hegemony of the academician who likes to read a book. I think that technically is rare. The foremost, I love Byung-Chul Han. The foremost researcher in reading, her name is Marianne Wolf, and she says we're natural-born storytellers, natural-born listeners, and we have to add on reading as a subroutine. So if we know this, that Socrates warned us that if we were to lose our agency to reading, well, I think I'm an example of the way to get out of that is audiobooks. So I argue if you find it difficult to engage with some of these classics, I could give you examples of excellent versions in an audiobook format. Like, for example, nearly every year I listen to James Joyce's Ulysses. But I listened to it from RTE in Ireland. They did a dramatic reading of it. And it's wonderful because James Joyce himself said that his books were meant to be listened to, not read. In fact, I know of a fellow academic who actually put a video on YouTube claiming that Shakespeare was meant to be read, not listened to. You get what I mean? So it's this disconnect with academia that they believe that reading, sitting quietly in a room reading a book is the proper way to grok this shit. And I argue the reason why we're turning away from reading is it doesn't have the gravitas that storytelling used to. Does that make sense? We need to get back to speaking, listening. Audiobooks, I think, is our first way in, you know? Thoughts?
100%. I love it. This is why I think what we do is so important. I mean, it's ridiculous because, you know, and I love that Luke's in the chat. I see Grim Grizz. You know, I think that having these dialogues is like so important. It's like, you know, and so people that criticize the thinky talky and stuff, it's like you're missing the whole point. Exactly. The whole point is you text me and I think I know what you meant. But then I come to find out you weren't being sarcastic.
Yeah.
You were actually being serious. So, you know, that's just a small modern day understanding of why we're missing the boat, because without the conversation, without the constantly, you know, understanding what you mean by the word abide is so quintessential to really knowing and loving my brother. So when you say you got to, I thought you're supposed to love your brothers. Yeah, we are, you know, but having these conversations and realizing I'm seeing it differently than you're seeing it. Well, guess what? It doesn't mean that we're arguing. It means we're finding a way to understand how we came to be when we understood this word abide. Yep. You know, like where we're drawing our tradition from, where we're drawing our concepts from. You know, that's why I like Al quoting the sources he's quoting. Why? Because I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from Buddhism. It's coming from Jung. It's coming from, that's important to see the caveats he's throwing in there. He's not, you know, he's not pushing his proposition from one thing into our sphere as if it's gospel. He's saying this was the idea. This is what clicked in my head. This is how I was able to connect it. And I think that's quintessential in all this.
Just to give you an insight, who was it that said it? Oh, yes, Grim. So, yes, I agree. And actually, someone ran it. So I'll just give you an insight. So someone was reading, what was it? He was reading Nietzsche. And, of course, he knew that I read Nietzsche. And so he asked me about some other stuff. And he mentioned Peterson when his We Who Struggle with God came out. And he told me that he couldn't listen to Peterson because of his voice. And so I said, well, have you tried adjusting? Because this is what I do. I listen to most of my audiobooks at 1.5 to 2 times speed. So it's not the same voice. And of course, he wasn't willing to engage with that. So I do agree with Grim if he means that your own internal voice. But here's the truth, is only about 20 to 40% of the population has that level of comfort with decoding a physical book, that their voice in their head. So we have so many barriers. We have light, we have font, we have physical paper, we have eyesight, we have distraction. And then you have to decode the text on the page into the words. The words are the sounds are the ideas. So we're actually looking at this as an inverse. Believe it or not, we are natural born listeners and storytellers. We can grok this stuff much more easily. In fact, if you look at the data, it's already showing it with very little what we call active listening training. But imagine if you took a kid like me who's been listening to audiobooks most of their life, right? I actually have an easier time grokking Byung-Chul Han's ideas through an audiobook than I have in a physical book, but that's practice. So the example I give is if you're just learning how to learn to read as a kid, you're not just going to hand them the book and go figure it out. You're actually going to give them little tricks. So the tricks I give people is learning audiobooks for the first time is not easy. In fact, Audible ships the majority of their books slower than it was originally read at. So first, maybe it needs to be sped up to keep your focus. So you might need to adjust the speed of the audiobook, faster or slower. But here's what I recommend. As you're learning to listen to an audiobook, follow along with the physical book. because it helps you focus, exponentially increases the amount of integration you'll have with the text, right? And once you feel comfortable, this is where I took it to the next level. I actually started to imagine the words being written on a whiteboard in my head as they were spoken. That helped me focus on the ideas more, to eventually now I don't even have to. Like, I could just let an audiobook run in the background in my head and follow along, no problem. You get what I mean? So it's just a learned skill, you know, how to develop this stuff. We've lost that skill of storytelling. You get what I mean?
Every time storytelling's come up out of your exchanges, I think of the campfire.
I'm sorry, yeah. I am
not sitting down reading a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly,
this
that's
is why I
think
thought the progression of this was for movies was the play, because the play was a more live version of the campfire. And so now we're another derivative away from the actual thing, because the interesting thing about the campfire stories is you have a relationship with the storyteller.
You're writing them. Yep.
Right. And so that story has been passed down from generations past, you know, or it could just be as simply an acknowledgement of the hunt that day. Like, you know, so I think, you know, and while I think reading is great and certain individuals thrive in that, for me, I've never been able to nail it down, and it wasn't for a lack of want. So I currently, when I do read the way you've suggested. I will follow along. I'm halfway through McDonald's. Which one was it? I have it out on the coffee table even. I read one of the stories. I don't think I'm reading Lilith, air quotes reading, but I haven't picked it up in like a month and a half. Like every time like the thought even comes into my head, it's usually when I'm exhausted and I'm laying on the couch and it's sitting right there, which is one of the reasons why I put it there, is so that it would be in my sight box all the time. But I just, you know, and I think that's where, well, I'll leave it at that. I'm going to pitch an ad for this weekend for the campfire aggression going on in Wisconsin and Washington.
It's perfect. What do you call that? Connection. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that was what was so different. It's so funny. I had this idea that when Megan came down to visit, we were going to maybe be able to do a sit down for other people to enjoy us interacting live in person. But as soon as she got here, it's like, no offense to the online community, I was engaging in a real life person, and I was enjoying, and the hospitality of that person sitting in front of me was way more valuable than to the people online, you know? And so like, I wanted to just enjoy the time I was having with her, the dialogue that we were having, the conversations that we were having. And it was so awesome. So I don't want to minimize our space online. It's so valuable. I think because I'm getting to know Scott, I'm getting to know Megan, I'm getting to know Olson. And when I do see them in person, it will be kind of like picking up right where we left off, but it's also going to be even more important to me when I'm listening to Scott in real life, even, you know, like, and Megan in real life. So those are so valuable. And so I just feel like, you know, I love the fact that everybody that's been here for a long time promotes the greater regional ingression protocol, because they're literally pointing out the fact that this is where some special magic happens in our relationships. You know, again, I don't want to minimize what we're doing online, because it is a huge bridge to the awkwardness of becoming into the IRL space. You know, it's like, I already know you. You already know me. This is. I'm not something different in real life than I am on here. You know, I'm not. Regardless of the prolif. Come on, help me out. I'm having a word.
Prophilicity.
Thank you very much.
I was just gonna watch.
This isn't a persona. Now you could argue that, do I have a persona in life? I mean, okay, I can get down with that. I get it. You know, I'm obviously not going to show you I'm not going to be showing you that I pick my nose when no one's looking. You know, I mean, like, I'm not trying to gross you out on my lack of humanity or my actual humanity. You know what I mean? You don't need to see me sitting on a toilet. You know what I mean? So there is a level of superficialness to it, but it's not, it's like my heart. I've always been accused of, nobody ever has to wonder what Brett's thinking. And I think it was pejoratively saying it because, like, I talk too much. But I think there's a value to you knowing what I'm thinking. No, you could argue there's some disadvantages to that.
I would say it speaks to the fullness. That's kind of what I'm coming to, and I think any other form of relating to other people is a derivative of. So even a book is a derivative of the relationship. That's not to say that there's not good things there, right? That you know, the author being able to spread the idea and the thought or the pleasure of reading to the world isn't a great thing, right? I just, you know, and that's one of the things that when I get to tune into Jeff and the letters of C.S. Lewis amongst his friends, right? Like you get a sense that C.S. Lewis would not have been C.S. Lewis without those things, right? It's the relationship. And then you get this interesting kind of I want to say a distilling of C.S. Lewis then into the work or the creation that he puts out into the world, which is, again, beautiful and great. But ultimately, it's a derivative of the relationship and relationships.
I like that too, because so you have this is how I'm seeing it. You have the written word, and I'm a weirdo like that too, Al. People make fun of me that I have an audio book and I actually have the book. It's like, why would you invest in both? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Yeah. And it does bother me that I have books that are so old that nobody's ever formulated an audio book. Those are the hardest ones for me.
I run into that every day. AI, bud. Google Books will read it out to you. So that's how I get around it. Yeah. Oh, I read it a lot. That's why I talk so much. I listen, no exaggeration. I listen to hours of audiobooks every day. And that's at accelerated speed. So, you know what I mean? I read about a book a day. And so what I've come to realize is and this is what we're talking about, we don't read to do what we usually talk about. We read to become who we are. I argue we learn to think to learn to read. We learn to read to learn to think. We learn to think to learn to write. We learn to write, to read, to think, all to become our fullest version of ourselves. You get what I mean? And that's why, just to give you an insight, do you know what you guys are circling? Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy. You guys familiar with Friedrich Nietzsche's Birth of Tragedy? This is where he talks about that the Greeks invented their plays to heal their post-traumatic trauma. It's exactly what you were saying, Brett. The fact that we, not just Campfire, but our plays, our acts, our everything. When two or more people get together, that's koinonia. I believe it is that communion, right? It's both healing and the fullness of the pleroma. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like there's these three things. There's you have this writing, you have the audio that you're listening to, but then like there's this third thing that you're kind of bringing both of those into, and it's the communal and being able to dialogue about this thing that both of us listened to and read now I'm getting, this is why I like our Psalm service as an example, where we literally read 3 chapters in one sitting, and then we're sitting around the table talking about what stood out to people. And it's so enlightening because luckily, most everybody has the same theology when I'm doing that in the psalm service. However, every once in a while, I hear somebody say something. I'm like, that's interesting. That's where they connected it, and it isn't necessarily right or wrong. It's just where they connected it, and what it does is it sits in my brain. It's like how people do a mnemonic device for names, like Scott. I'm going to try to remember Scott. His name is Scott. Okay, Scotty from Star Trek. He's in charge of the engine. You know what I mean? Like you'll do these games in your brain to help remind yourself somebody's name. That to me is what happens in that psalm service, is that we read this text together collectively at the same time. We all and we're listening to it, by the way, Al. So we listen, we're reading in that psalm service, and we're dialoguing across the table. And all of these people's ideas are so like when I leave a normal sermon, I could not tell you about that sermon a week later.
No,
because it's just boop, I was just sitting there,
right?
just digesting it. It wasn't in writing, it was a homiletic thing that they were doing for application of a passage or whatever. And this is why I love the service so much, is because to me, I'm not staring at the back of somebody's head in church service. I'm not just doing the thing. Again, I'm not saying there isn't a value to that. Us together, united side by side, praising and worshiping Christ, realizing, be intentional about what we're doing together collectively. But that's why I also go to both services. I just grow way more in the psalm service, and not enough people find value in that. Like, it's a smaller service. On the big end, we have 50 people, but in the main service, which is more of a seeker sensitive vibe, it's a lot of people, and it's like, this is what they think church looks like or should look like, and this is where they're at. And so I get it.
Yeah.
But to me, that's more me being there. I feel like I'm doing more service there by being there present. And in the psalm service, I'm being more fed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is the opposite, because I'm actually supposed to be serving in the psalm service. Like, I'm a table host and I cook breakfast, and but I get way more.
That's the beautiful thing about the of sacrificing it, giving it up, and then it comes back, and it's different and new and grows. Yeah, no, that's really beautiful. Yeah.
I remember going to a Catholic service. Don't judge me here, guys. I've been to many, many services across many religions, but what I found awesome is I went a little early, because what they do is they chant the rosary before service. And so I was able to see this. And follow me here. It's all a sense of dissolution of the self. Okay. So in the Catholic service, they're chanting the rosary, right? So they're getting out of themselves, because most of them, like my wife, has it memorized. She doesn't know it. Like song lyrics, you don't know them off the top of your head until you start to hear it. When you start to hear it, it all comes back. But when that flooding is coming, what else is being emptied? That's your kenosis, emptying of your selfish self, and will be filled up. So what I find, and this is universal, sitting in a Catholic church, not as much in the Canadian United, because they don't mention Christ very much at all. Anselman should be criticizing the Canadian United Church, not me. But in the Catholic, in the Buddhist, in the Vedantins, they use the same sort of practice. So the Catholics, when you're sitting there and you're chanting together, I got this feeling of the self, like there's something greater than myself, right? And I feel this is why we used to have the Latin liturgy, because I've seen it in Buddhism. I don't know if you guys realize this, but there's a famous Buddhist scripture sutra called the Compassion Mantra. And it is chanted by the Japanese and the Chinese and the Tibetans. But what's interesting is the Chinese and the Japanese chant the entire sutra in a way that it doesn't make sense. They don't pronounce the characters the way they would be pronounced in everyday speech. And I believe that's done on purpose, because instead of you actually trying to cognize what the meanings and the words is, you kind of get out of yourself. And I believe that's why we have these group experiences, why we maybe might play with another language, because I see this when they're walking around chanting. I can see that they're not thinking about the bills at home often. Sometimes they are, but they get out of themselves and they can be in the moment for often the first time all week. Do you guys get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's that dissolution of self. Like, I think it all goes back to the same idea. You know what I mean? Kenosis, right? What John said, empty. I need to be made less and he needs to be made more. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Talk to you guys out. It's good.
What a great conversation this has been. Thank you both.
Yeah. We need to listen to more audiobooks, and that'll get more people more comfortable with speaking. I mean, yeah. I run into this when I was raised bilingual, English and French, and I was told that they would never dumb down the French language. That's an English thing, dumbing down the English language, but they've done it to the French language too. And if you dumb down your language, you lose your ability to express yourself. You lose your ability to express yourself. And this is, that's what I want to mention. Y'all were talking about the importance of C.S. Lewis. You know what goes unsaid is the influence that Owen Barfield had, not just on C.S. Lewis, but also on Tolkien himself, right? So this language, right? I would recommend you go and do a deep dive. There's a couple of great seminars available on YouTube about this, about how foundational Owen Barfield was to them. But just even how philology, which is the love of language and what it does to us and how it shapes us, not just linguistics, boring, right? Pedantic, but philology, this understanding of what they meant, not what they said. Does that make sense?
Is that the definition of philology? You use that word.
Well, philology, it just means a love of language.
No idea what it means.
Yeah, the philology is like logos. It's just another form of logos, and philos, love. So it's just the love of words. But again, here's the superposition. Philology could also be the love of the logos, in a sense, right? Because if everything, and this is the beauty of it, the logos was the word and all that jazz, is it connects to the breath. When we speak, we're breathing, we're respiring, inspiring, right? It's like, it's all in our language. This is why I believe philologists get so incredibly religious, is because the very nature of our language is metaphysical and spiritual. You get what I mean?
I do. It maps to the armor of God. The sword is the word. And I don't mean that as scripture as much, because that's usually how it's portrayed. But I'm saying it's the actual words you speak, like the words that made all of creation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with him, and through that was creation. It's the power. It's the one offensive weapon in the whole armor of God. Is the Word. So yeah, I map to that very nicely. Well, I have a map that maps to your map very nicely.
No, but that's just to give you an idea. I believe there is no map. Just to give you guys an insight. This is why I corrected someone who was talking about, I don't talk about prophelicity to the philosopher Moeller, because I don't map to his. I'm actually talking about prophelicity, the idea that we're all just living a profile, right? But it goes to the same idea. Brett, you're a little loud. A little bit of background. Yeah. No, that's all right. It just threw me off. But that's what we're getting at here, is the idea that you can only come to know what and who you are through the language. Call it logos, call it breath. I don't think it matters. But I don't know how to explain this, but I mean, I think our biggest disconnect is that we're not sitting around doing this, guys. Right? Like, I think we should be going around reading. I mean, if that's listening as well. But like you guys said, I believe this is my solution. If you guys have children, this is what I recommend how to fix your kids. So I recommend that you pair them off. Okay. No, it's actually, it's what the young Jews do, and the Tibetans in the PhD, they'll actually pair off and they'll challenge each other. But this is what I recommend you do, because it gets all of what I call polymodal learning. I stole this from a Canadian. He came up with an idea of dual coding. It's this idea that show and tell. I go further than that. I say show, tell, and more. Okay. So what I argue is have two. Yeah, it is fighting, right? So you have two kids, you pair off, you're reading the same text. One kid reads to the other kid, right? So one kid's reading, that's one type of test, plus he also has to comprehend. The other kid's listening and comprehending. Then they talk about what they read. Then they change. The other guy reads to that guy. And you go back and forth, and they challenge each other on their understandings of the text. They help each other with the reading. It's kind of, it's the opponent processing in a sense, right? Because it's not, and this is the thing that you guys have been circling, but you haven't actually talked about, I think, is the fact that a true friend will actually push back on you harder than anyone else will. You get what I mean? And that's what I see as missing. Teachers are not hard enough on our kids, because kids would never learn a language. Actually, Mark and Tbilisi can talk about this. I use Georgian as an example when it comes to language. If you aren't born in Georgia and raised to be a native Georgian speaker, you're never going to speak Georgian natively, because it's arguably the most complicated language on the planet. You get what I mean? And so the reason why is that's how we teach kids a language. And I argue that's how we learn everything. You must force this kid to, as a survival instinct. The example I give is look up The 13th Night. It's a movie with Antonio Banderas. And there's a scene where he's sitting around the campfire, talk about 360.
Yes.
Exactly. And where
Yes.
he's listening to the Vikings and he's picking up the language. You get what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about here. You get what I mean? So it's
that was
yeah.
that was the most that was
tried.
the most fascinating scene. I have never
Same
seen
here.
anybody in movies before. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, I've never seen anybody in movies before find a
I'll
way
get the
to
link
to translate the movie into an English dialect
Yeah.
the way that they did, because they were all talking foreign, because you were this 13th knight that didn't understand what people were saying. And so you felt like you were the knight that didn't understand the language. And then you started watching him learning the linguistics, seeing them talk, and the language was morphing into English. So you were seeing him learning the language in real time, and our understanding as the viewer was learning it. It was the best way to artistically show or transmit from the original language into an English language for us to understand what was going on. The depiction and the symbolism of that was so profound. I can't believe you said that, Al. And really, this is the next thing I wanted to get to, is that I know
Play the clip, Jamie.
Yeah.
I know. I love that. I'm watching the chat. You guys are so entertaining. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I had a Jamie.
Yes.
So
that's the movie we're
Put the
talking
link in
about.
the private chat if you want to put it in the main chat. I don't know if I could put it.
I'll see if I'll run inside and do it.
No, I mean
so-
for our watchers in the YouTube.
Oh yeah, but it would be cool to watch it again. So what was
Movie that
crazy
sounds like
is,
a movie night.
yeah,
If we ever do the one we're waiting for now.
come on, Gigi's got to shame him more. So what was crazy about this is that I'll never forget when my mom was telling me about how marriage counseling, they did an attack, and you've heard this before, Luke's brought it up, is it's a mirroring tactic. And the idea is that you sit, you listen, you're forced to listen. Then you have to repeat what that person just said, which is the steel manning thing. It's the idea of you making sure that you that you understood what they were communicating. And the point of it is because then they correct you. No, that's not what I said. And then they reiterate it again. And then until you do this, until the person confirms, yes, this is what I understand you saying, then you speak from your perspective on what you're saying and what you think. And then they have to do the same thing.
Exactly.
And so the idea of the mirroring and tactic and counseling is so valuable, because this is what we're talking about. This is what we're trying to do so much. Like when, we were talking about Anselman, when he uses the word abide, what am I understanding when you say abide? What you mean is I am Christ. Is that what I'm understanding you correctly? He would say, no, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, well then I'm now, because I'm misunderstanding the way you're using this term. We are Christ. Wait a minute. Are we like Christ? Are we trying to be Christ-like?
So
like I'm
in
trying
Christ? Yeah.
Exactly. This word abide. I think it was so great the way that it just went into the path. And then using the Big Lebowski thing. It was just like, the whole dude thing. It's like, it's just, to me, all that stuff is so awesome. I learned so much today, just in this conversation, and this is, I think, what the whole point of doing all this is.
That's individuation. Everyone hates Jung, but all he was saying that we do everything we do in an attempt to become the best version of ourselves, the best template we can be. And is that not what we're called to do? Am I right? Like we're called to be the best version of ourselves, not be perfect, because that's arguably impossible, but you know what I mean? Always be trying, even if you aren't the best version of yourself. The fact that you are metanoia, turned towards your alignment, is that you're trying to be your best self. Like that's what I used to say, that I argue that Buddhism is just a philosophy that teaches you if you do something with right intention and it goes sideways because of something you didn't know or something out of your hands, but if you had the correct intention going into it, well, then there should be no regret. You get what I mean?
Right. Clean
Learn
hands.
from it and move on.
Clean
Yeah.
hands.
Well, not clean hands, but learn from it and move on. Don't be frozen by it. What we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah. No, that's how I've looked at fallen relationships in the past. I try to make sure that I put enough on the table to be able to be, you know, because obviously I'm going to be sad because the relationship is ended, but you know, to the best of my abilities, and that usually comes through prayer, right? Is did I do everything that I could have?
Yeah.
You know, because to your point, if I haven't, if I've given up too soon, if I didn't suffer long enough in that thing, there will be regret. Yeah, there will be regret. And I know that because I've done that before. And so,
if we're honest. Yeah.
Yeah. If we're honest, which points back to your therapy kind of talk there, Brett, because I was thinking in that both participants, actually, you could make the argument that all three participants have to be in it for the right reason, right? If there's any kind of like, I don't know how to say it, some like not for the good of everyone there, then it's going to fail still, right? But then what do you do in that participation? You still have to participate to the best of your ability, but I think that's part of the problems that we talk about in society today is we're in it not for all the participants, but just the self.
And can I point out, Grim is spitting fire in the chat, if I can, as the kids say, right? I think the calling is to be clean enough that the Holy Spirit can work through you 100%. And I love how he added, right? Regret is that thing they call baggage, right? So I would agree. And I want to maybe trigger Brett a little bit to bring Friedrich Nietzsche into this, who was a proto-trauma specialist. And he called it ressentiment. He stole the word from French. It means to re-sentiment, re-experience, which is what trauma is. Trauma is something that happened in the past that you're experiencing as if it was happening in the now, right? And that's what baggage is. And the harmful part is that's normal, but the harmful part is if you allow it to limit you, right? And that's why I brought up Nietzsche. Nietzsche said that most of us have been so traumatized in the past that anything that happens to us, we're reacting based on a template from the past. We're not reacting to what's happening now. And so that's what I would say. It's not just baggage, but it's baggage that weighs you down, keeping you from your path, your intended goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's ingredient in the cake that doesn't belong in the cake.
That keeps it from rising.
Right.
Yes.
Because those experiences can also make us richer, right?
As long as it doesn't hinder the I guess the example would be like as long as it's not vinegar in the yeast. You get what I mean? In the leaven. Yeah.
Thank God we have somebody that can turn water to wine, though. Turn the vinegar.
Maybe you could
back
do the
to
opposite.
wine.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that. He's like, "Ooh, I'll fix that for you." But I mean, arguably, that's the truth. Yeah. I mean, yeah. We digress too much, and it's my fault. I apologize.
Stephanie's back from this morning.
I know, eh? We're still on. You guys should just ban me. I'll be honest, and then you'd have nice short 1 hour.
Do you guys want to watch this clip?
Might as well. Jamie,
please do,
run the clip.
This is literally how children learn language. I love this because it isn't just how someone thrown into another culture, but just to give you a full 360, watch this both in a superposition as how kids learn language, how a stranger would learn language. But guess what? This is what's called in linguistics, it's called grammar. So every generation, every culture, every clique develops its own grammar. The TLC is actually known for that. And so you have to, it's not just learning another language. You actually, when you're in Congress with other people, you have to learn their grammar and what they mean by this. And you get what I mean? So I love this for showing, because it can also be how we relate with somebody new in the world, not a different language, just the way they see the world, you know? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. Here it is.
Cat makes me nuts.
Aika my ostis. For når han var ung, vant han lettemål. Hvad er det? For når han var ung.
I Italien with. Nej, ikke der. Nej, ikke der.
Selvfølgelig vant han. Ingen tror at man kan gi så lyd.
In a rock hats. In a rock hats. Yeah, that's the good.
Jeg vet ikke. Kom morgen.
Nu skal du høre. Så her er vår pocket. Will a sheep belong to snake up to steal teeth of 12 horses?
Så kommer det bedste. Så kommer det bedste. Når han ville gå, ropte han til dem. Vet ikke. Kanskje vi kan find some geese. So then he says, do not foretell my wife, for I will get no supper when I come home tonight. Hello, like that.
Ronald slept with her while we took the horse.
No hearts go to you. She probably was some smoke-colored camp girl. Looks like that one's mother.
My mother was a pure woman from a noble family, and I at least know who my father is.
That's beautiful.
You.
A little shade on the Viking.
Dude, that is the greatest.
Yeah. I really hope.
I don't know when I first
a little longer, whether him picking out one word here and one word there, you know, but
yeah, but no, the idea, the way they articulated that was so awesome.
Exactly, the phonemes.
Like,
I love that you guys understand this stuff. It's so fascinating. Like I wrote an essay a little while back. There's para, right? You guys know para from the Greek is not the same para from the Latin, and we have it in Sanskrit as well. There's an apara and para, so it's fascinating. They're all the same phonemes, same sound, right? Like that's my username, Ohm. That's why I play with it. OHM is resistance in electricity. AUM is the universe, God, creation, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Ohm. Yeah, phonemes. Yeah, I'm a big fan of memes too. I believe it's a new evolution in language. That's a whole nother discussion. Right? Same as the way we relate here. I believe what you guys are doing, I believe honestly, when everything is faked, I used to say this about game theory. If everything's been gamed, well, then you have to game the game, right? You shouldn't feel bad that you are forced to have to game the system, right? And I think this is what's going on here is the idea that when the world is so fake and everything, and this is what I love. It's what Jung called enantiodromia. It's called the reversal to the opposite. So the internet became so fake, it actually created this authenticity sphere, this corner, like what you guys are pushing. I believe that's how the human creature works. Like if you look historically in, 356 AD, arguably it was the worst period in human history. It was like a global famine. But after that, some of the greatest thoughts and ideas ever was ever created by human. So I believe the more pressure we're put under, the greater we produce. You get what I mean? And that's what I'm seeing, with you guys here in this. There's a number of different areas. There's a number of groups, circling these ideas. Authenticity. I mean,
yeah, and it helps. And this is what I do want to remind. I think us, and I think we all are on the same page. Letting people into our groups, if that's how you want to look at it, it only comes from trust in a relationship building. So like that's one of the fundamental problems that we have with certain people that will lob things from the comments. It's fine. That's where you want to be. You want to do that thing. The issue I have is when your intentions are disingenuous and meant to push on that you're an authority on history, or like you guys don't see the whole picture because you're using a world frame to see history. It's like, okay, you're entitled to that, but when you hammer it over and over and over again, and people are like, listen, we want to have a conversation, we want to talk about like what's going on in your life and how it's connecting to what we're talking about right now. You don't want to do that? Fine. You want to stay in a political sphere? That's not what we're about. You want to stay in the historical, righting all the wrongs of how history has been redepicted in your mind. Yeah. That's not what we're here for. We're having just a dialogue between people, getting to understand what they mean. So like when we talk about Rob, hey, we'd love for you to come on at some point in life, right? Why? Because then we can probe each other and we can talk to each other, understand where your formation came from. Why he doesn't want to come on? I think it's obvious. He doesn't want to challenge his footing. He doesn't want his footing. I wonder how strong his footing truly is if he's not willing to put his face behind the camera. And again, it doesn't, I wouldn't even have to see his face, but the fact that he's actually being verbally challenged, not in a combative way, because I think we all have a genuinely good heart and we wouldn't be attacking Rob in that way.
Yeah, you guys wouldn't be engaging if you didn't already want.
Right. And so like, that's the thing that I don't think both Rob and Claire can't seem to grasp. And so like when we're talking about silos, because for a while there, I was like taking it personal. It's like, am I siloing off because I'm banning him? No, I'm not. I'm actually personally as a host, I'm protecting the group and the conversation from getting derailed to an agenda.
Yeah.
So the way I see it, it's about safeguarding what we're trying to do, because I feel like that's more important than this arbitrary keep things open so everybody can just start debating like the debate spheres, which is fundamentally different.
Openness for open's sake is not no. It has to be mapped. Now I'm going to try to stop using the word mapped. But it's got to be wrapped up in the whole thing. It's just a part. Openness is a part, because there is also a time to close the city gates and fight the enemy.
Circle the wagons, eh? But if I could just give you guys just another, so maps first. You guys remember Command and Conquer? You remember the video game Command and Conquer?
Mm-mm.
No, okay. It was this video game where you would try to explore the world. Civilization. You guys remember the video game Civilization? So it was
a big video games guy.
And this is from 40 years ago. It's also from 40 years ago, so don't worry about it. It was the dawn of the video game age. But the way it worked is you were creating a civilization, so you're exploring new territory. So there was no map. If you pulled up the map when you first were starting these games, the map was blank until you began to explore them. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier. Remember we talked about baggage that can hold you up or freeze you, or that's what we're getting at here. What I want us to get to a point where we realize that if we've reached what they call the Gödel point, meaning we've realized the map is not directing us. You get what I mean? We're off the map, or the map's wrong. I want us to embrace what I used to do in the bush in Northern Ontario. I used to just love to go on walkabout. Like I had a compass, and I knew that if I went too far this way, I'd hit a lake. You know what I mean? I would just wander. No map. You know what I mean? And I think that's what our problem is, because the word, and if you want to talk about this, the word occult used to just mean the things that were beyond our perception. And now it means something negative. And so I'd love for us to embrace engaging with the world without a map. Does that make sense? Is what Brett said? Did you say it earlier? This idea of reading something, going into something, thinking it's about something, and then being surprised. You get what I mean? This is something we need more of in the world. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's
yeah. I think it's hard, especially for the kids, because so much of it is given to them in the frame that it all has been mapped. And so that was like, for instance, like a lot of the young people I talk to now, they're like, what do I do? It's all been done already. And I'm like, yeah, having that framework. And so that will speak to my last word here too, because the baggage can be transformed in how you look at it. So the more kind of ready example I have of this is, when I changed my perception, there's a insult where you can call somebody a tool. And I came to the understanding, like, how is that even an insult? Especially once I started getting into doing work with my hands. Like, the most valuable things I have are my tools. And so how are you calling me that? And so now the insult has lost its... Now you could look at the intent, right, and say that, but now because I have a different framework, that weapon has been nerfed, to use a term. So our own mindsets in how we, and I think that's a relationship to the word. Then is like how am I relating it with my mindset, with what I folded in, and how it can change your baggage into experience and then richness.
It's what they say. The rarest thing in most people is most people only look at their life when stuff goes really wrong. The argument is, can you, in everything you do, step outside of yourself? That's the awareness of the awareness. But even in a simple certain, like after this discussion, are you the type of person that's going to sit down after and integrate what you experience? Think about it, mull it over. And I think that's what you guys are getting at. It's kind of like you're engaging with it live firsthand to teach others maybe how to do this personally, and maybe for us to learn to do it when we step away from the live stream. Does that make sense? This integration, this what would you call it? The struggling with your shadow, not embracing it, struggling with the shadow, or whatever. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, that
was my final words.
And this, I'm like, I think one of the things I didn't get to slip out, because I think I was into the conversation and we moved. One of the things, at least this particular Protestant here, is I am one of the type of Protestants that see the value in the things that people do in the liturgy, like the Latin Mass and stuff. I do see such beauty in that. And I don't think people understand that that's how my heart is. And I like the values of the idea behind the rosary, like the idea of trying to empty your mind.
Yep.
You know, and they try to do that in some Protestant services. Like in the beginning, they'll say, you know, that somebody might come on and say, hey, Liz, you know, like even in a prayer, they'll say, you know, Lord, empty our minds, leave the troubles at the door. You know, like they'll say these things in a prayer to help orientate people and getting them to that place. Is it enough? No, I do believe there's some value to a meditation process, that this idea that maybe there's something mentally that occurs when there's a root thing that happens for a period of time, to where you did get so sucked into the what you're doing. And now I'm able to get to the heart of the matter here. And we had talked about on other streams, the listening for God, you know, and in this case, we had, I don't know, maybe the first hour, and I'm not busting on the first hour of us talking, but the first hour was a little distracting. We had the echoing, we had all these distractions that were going on, you know, this kind of idea of the outside world distracting us. But then we got into the talk, and it always much more beneficial to me the deeper that we go in a conversation why, you know, it's okay with, like, let's just keep going, you know, like we're 3 hours and 47 minutes into this thing. So I love the idea of, you know, whatever it was that we needed to get through to clear our minds and get engaged in the dialogue that we were having, so that we can really pick up things and benefit ourselves. And this is where I think the iron sharpens iron thing really hits home to me. You know, I actually did a whole, in Logos, I did a search on the idea of silos, and it was so funny. There was tons of proverbs and psalms that literally talk about isolating. It was crazy. I mean, I found 6 or 7 right off the rip, and then it got in Ecclesiastes, but then it started touching into the New Testament, some of the letters that Paul had wrote, and it was really cool to see this connection. And I'd originally planned on maybe getting into reading and stuff, but what was so cool is the idea. They bring it right back to the as iron sharpens iron, and how we are better off when we have brothers that can talk into our life. We get permission to do those things, and it enables us to learn and grow and even push our framework if it is unstable, or if it isn't solid, or if there is some weaknesses or cracks in it. How do I shore that footing up? And that's what I get from you guys, even if it's in my own tradition. Like if somebody says something and I'm like, well, that doesn't, like Al had mentioned this before, that actually makes it more stronger for me. I'm stronger in my conviction on what I'm thinking here now, because I'm also seeing that doesn't work for me. Like I don't see that way, and it strengthens core belief structure in that thing. You know, so like every time I have a weirdness about something, it's like, you know, I process it and I say, okay, that applies. I need to look at that. Or no, I don't, that doesn't apply at all. I don't see a connection. That doesn't make sense to me at all. So anyway, dude, I appreciate you guys. This was great. I love when you come on, Al, dude. I mean, I wish you do it more often. You know, whether people get, you know, distracted by you quoting, who cares? I don't really care about that.
It's not actually the reason why I don't come on that often. Is I do talk too much. I am of the old school where, like with the Japanese, right? It's rude for you not to engage when someone's speaking. So it's weird to me letting someone just talk. Because if I don't know if you've noticed that, if I talk, I'm like waiting. It's like, is anyone listening? Because if it's quiet, it's weird to me. But also, like you said, I seem to piss more people off in the chat than.
I don't care about that.
You know what I mean?
And the chat, the chat is a healthy chat. Everybody that was commenting, there were kind of, you know, personal attacks on people, you know, and so like that's the idea. It's like, so I appreciate everybody that was in the chat. You know, Grim was in there, Ezra, you know, Stephanie was on. You know, I can't. So it was really, really cool to see how many people were engaging in the chat and being able to pop on. And I do think that's a value of having a bigger window of conversation, because even if they didn't pick it up, maybe they'll be able, if there's something that was fascinating on this topic, they can go back to the video and look at it from the beginning and maybe kind of fast forward to the point where they're okay, that's where they were getting that from. So
and in fact, what I recommend is AI. Wait for the live streams to go up fully, then you can click the little AI button and it gives you all the timestamps. So if someone said something, you're like, hey, you don't have to waste an hour finding it. AI will get it. So yes, I love that. Going back after the fact, you know, anything that you may have missed, like Brett, when you had to step away. Yeah, I love that. And I do that with regular videos as well. Like if something is really, really awesome, I'll actually have the AI, because sometimes you'll have missed something, you know?
Yeah. And that's great, because that's helpful. And another thing, the idea, so I leave my live chat on. So if you're watching later on, you're able to see the conversations that we're talking about that are in the chat. I try to put them up on screen so it's in the video side of it too, if it's really, you know, something we're talking about or whatever, but sometimes I miss them and I don't get it all. So I encourage people to do that as well, because I think it's very helpful.
I think it's the biggest part of the live stream. Yeah. I mean, I personally think that a live stream struggles if they ignore the chat, but at the same time, if they're too much about the chat, and I think you guys are getting really good at finding a balance, right? Picking out the chat that is relevant and perspectival, and, ignoring the stuff that is an aside, Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. I appreciate it. And anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Hopefully we'll be able to do this soon. I don't know who's up tomorrow, so we'll figure that out. I'd promo whoever's taking the lead tomorrow.
What is
I think
tomorrow?
Olson and
Friday?
I think Olson, yeah. If Olson can do it, that'd be nice. It's been a while, so it'd be nice to hear.
He didn't do
one.
Monday.
So,
oh no, he had the thing. Yeah, okay.
no, he did Monday, I think, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did Monday. Yeah, no, I'm just saying though, it's like I guess B, I know B. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, whatever. We'll talk.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
have a good
Cheers.
day,
Have a great
guys.
day, guys.
I appreciate
Good
you
day,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks, Al. Brett.
Cheers all.